escape pod was destroyed and you died. Lucky for you that you have been reincarnated through an insurance claim. Warp drive active. You clumsy pilot. The capacitor is empty. You clumsy pilot. Docking request accepted.
Hello everyone and welcome to the exciting conclusion of Anger Games 5 45 teams have failed to get here, and we are now left with only 3. Only needs 2 comps, Pajola Capital Supremacy and Paper Numbers. And by the end of today, we will see which team is going to walk away with 130 billion ISK worth of Plex, and much more important than that, a whole heap of respect and honor from the tournament community. So, I'm here on the desk with Azure Argent, the Dell Victrix captain, and Murray Rothabo. Azure, what can you tell me about the route that some of these teams have taken to get to this position?
Well, so obviously only needs 2 comps, and Perjola have both come through the winner's bracket. They're going to be our first match today, and obviously they just beat everyone they went up against, and the way they did is kind of the most interesting thing to me. So only needs 2 comps. They've basically been bringing armored battleship comps, control comps. They've done Balgorns, Armageddons, Hyperions, those sorts of things. Whereas Perjola have actually tended to focus more on missile comps. They've done Drake Navies, Gilas, Bargas, that sort of thing. So I think we're going to see a very interesting matchup between those two, just in different styles, going into this first match.
Yeah, and of course, I think one of the things that's most interesting to me is the fact that no matter who ends up winning today, we will have a brand new champion of Anger Games that has never won before. As all 3 of these teams, whilst one of them has made it to the final day before, none of them have actually ever succeeded in taking the grand prize. So, Murray, what can you tell me about these teams? What should we be looking forward to in this first match?
Yeah, I between the two, Pervola Capital, just because they have taken some of these shield comps, there's potential for them to be super aggressive and go for some strategies that might be a bit more surprising. Only need 2 comps. They've shown a couple of different looks throughout the tournament, but they end up using a lot of very similar core ships. They've leaned on things like the Hyperion in the past, especially when they suspect that their opponents are going to bring some ECM. And so, if I'm looking towards this match, I'm expecting to see only need 2 comps try and push Perhola Capital Supremacy away from these shield comps and into something they can more easily counter.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what they end up coming up with here and what they end up bringing to the field. Obviously, both of these teams, even if they do lose here, they have a chance to play again later in the evening to secure their spot in the grand finals. So, potentially a chance for them to bring a sort of a trick setup, as it were, if they're willing to risk their tournament life by doing so. But with that in mind, let's throw it over to something a little special that we've cooked up for this final weekend, which is interviews with some of the captains who are going to be fighting tonight. And we're going to hear from Skykiller, who is the captain of Pujola. Yourself and your role on the team, please.
I'm Skykiller, and I'm captain of Perjola Capital Supremacy. This is pretty much Darkside team, mainly. We have a couple of members, I think 2, that were previously in the Hydra team for Alliance Opens and the Alliance AT17. Yeah, as for my role, I am the captain. It's actually the first tournament that I am the captain in.
So, what did Darkside do on Tranquility?
Good question. So we pretty much, I've been in Darkside for probably about 4 years, and what we do is like a mid-scale roaming. Our main difference between other mid-scale groups is that we don't usually fly with an anchor. So every single pilot in our alliance knows how to pilot manually. Rarely, I would say rarely fly with an anchor. And, all of us pretty much know what they're doing when it comes to piloting. We live in Maila, and Maila has a Stargate called Perjola, where a lot of capitals die daily. Here comes the name, Perjola Capital Supremacy, for the Anger Games team name.
So, what edge do you think Pujola has that's allowed you to get this far in the tournament?
To be honest with you, we didn't have that many games. We only had 3 games, and on the third one, the edge was the ECM. That RNG factor with the ECM, where at least in my opinion, I think we kind of got lucky with the jams there, which is why we were able to win. It was kind of a joke, so I think the actual reason we got in there, I think it's a combination of good pilots and maybe perhaps good decision making.
Are there any other teams that have impressed you so far in this tournament?
Yeah, I have to give out big shout outs to like the bottom tier teams that went there to the losers bracket on the first day, and they actually got themselves. They're still in the game. They're still in the tournament. So those are both A and paper numbers. I mean, those are, I believe, the actual teams that deserve the top 8.
Now I guess comes the most important question. Do you think you're going to win?
It's a tough one. I think realistically, I think we have a good chance. I think we have a good chance, but to say that we're gonna win, it's tough to say because looking at templates, they only showed one comp. So how are we supposed to know how to? Being honest, because I'm pretty sure they have quite a few tricks up their sleeves, and it's a pretty tough, it's a great team, and but if I do get a chance to fight them, or if I do get a chance to fight the masses, whoever it is, it will be amazing.
Thank you very much to Skykiller and all of the other captains who spent the time to make those interviews possible. But we now finally have the bans ready, so we can start talking about what potentially might get brought to the field here in this match. Only needs 2 comps have banned out the Widow, Healer, and Barguest. And Azure, I know that you thought that these bans were very well researched. Can you give me some insight as to what Only Need 2 Comps is trying to do with that?
Well, so obviously they're banning 3 very strong ships, but the Gila and the Barghest and the Widow are all 3 ships that Perjola has shown and had success with so far in this tournament. And the Widow and the Barghest are very critical to any comp that they're brought with. Widow you could change to a Scorpion, but that requires reworking the rest of the comp because you're losing DPS. And then any comp with a Gila in it, you basically can't replace the Gila with anything, and Orthrus just doesn't do the job. So I think that Only Need 2 Comps has looked at what Perjola has brought, what they've had success with, and they're trying to push Perjola out of their comfort zone, which is a pretty good strategy, I think. It may or may not work, but you certainly are forcing them to show you something new that's showing that they can change what they're playing with to still have success.
Yeah, and on the other hand, Perjola Capital Supremacy have banned the Zarmazd, Blackbird, and Balgorn. Murray, what can you tell me about those bans? What does that indicate to you?
They're looking to take away some typical armor control options and try and make the composition a little more awkward. I think, whatchamacalls them, I think Only Needs 2 Comps are still going to lean towards that type of composition, even if it isn't something that they necessarily may be as confident in without certain ships, but they've really shown that they want to play that kind of style, and so I think they'll try and stick to it.
Now, given this is the grand finals, it's probably worth just going over the basic rules once again for those of you in the audience who are a little new and might not be familiar with the tournament setting. Murray, do you mind just taking us over a little bit about how the arena is set up, both with regards to the MJD beacons and the dreaded boundary?
Yeah, so the arena is 125 kilometers radius, so 125 kilometers in any direction from the center. And outside of that, you instantly die. It's not like the Abyssal Arena where you just start taking a little chip damage, you just explode. Now, for the beacons, for the MJD beacons, you have one in the dead center of the arena that you can basically use to launch yourself wherever you feel like it. Then you also have beacons in kind of a cube setup where you have one in each corner in a square on the top, a square below. And those beacons you can use to either bounce directly to other beacons in that cube, as they're all exactly 100 kilometers apart, each side to side, or you can use them to launch yourself out of the arena once your team has already lost, or you can try and aim yourself somewhere else on grid. But like I said, those beacons tend to be much riskier because you can accidentally launch yourself out of the arena while you're trying to kite.
Yeah, and Azure, can you take me through a little bit of how people, make their compositions? What constraints are the team captains working with when they try and bring ships to the field here?
Well, so the first thing is every team can only have 7 pilots on the field. And so you have to pick 7 ships that do everything that you need. And there's a few major things that you need. Obviously, DPS is a big one. Um, everyone likes to have tackle because it helps you apply. You need boosts. You need logi, and everything's about creating a compromise. And each ship, of course, brings with it also a different point value. So battleships, just a Tech 1 battleship is 25 points, whereas a small little frigate like, say, a Malediction is only 3. And so you have 100 points to play with, and you have to kind of mix and match and fill your needs in your comp. And there's lots of different solutions, and everyone comes up with different ones. And it's just a matter of getting the right balance and then getting the right pilots in those ships to execute once you hit the field.
All right, well, both teams have now taken the field, so let's just quickly get in our predictions. Murray, who do you think's taking the win here?
I like the way Only Need 2 comps have approached this, and I'm going to give them a slight edge because of that.
Azure?
I'm also going to go with Only Need 2 comps. I think the comps that they've been bringing throughout this tournament have been sort of stronger and more on brand with what this tournament needs as far as to be successful. So I think that they're probably the better prepared team.
Well, I guess I'll be the odd one out and go for Pajola here. But let's hand it over to Virion and Moderator in the commentator's booth to take us through this match.
Hello, everybody. My name is Virion Stoneshard, joined by Murray, moderator for the first match of today. And it looks like Pajola have taken a book out of Esports Catopia's guidelines and have brought a no logi comp. Moderator, can you tell me what we've got on grid here?
Yeah, so we see that Only Need 2 comps has chosen to bring an Abaddon Brutix Navy issue, double Brutix Augur Navy issue, and Vexer. Of note, these Brutixes and Faction Brutix will be rail fit, not blasters, and the Aug Navy appears to be beam fit. Walk me through Only needing 2 comps.
So they have brought a fairly standard comp for them, at least a fairly standard style. They have an Armageddon for new control, an Abaddon for DPS, a Rodiva, a Vedmek, an Aug Navy, a Draugr, and a Pontifex. So a lot of links as well.
Yeah, and not surprising, Tim Baron in the Rodiva is the initial primary. Only Pajoli choosing to use their long-range projection, hitting very far across the arena, getting damage onto him, putting him into 1/3 armor in the opening, 20-30 seconds of this match. It'll be
And we
massive
see
if
an
they can get a
MPT
kill.
play from the Abaddon of Skykiller, putting him very close to Rodiva. If he can get enough damage on, they might get an early Logi headshot here.
Yeah, and that would be tragic for Tin Baron here, who is continuing to get painted here. Meanwhile, BSL in the Brutix is taking a good amount of damage. To the surprise of literally no one, that will be a whole tank Brutix and a no logic comp. Trading a Rodiva for a Brutix would probably be a bit worth. Of note, we see that Tin Baron, burning all the way out to 115 kilometers, will be a self-rep Rodiva, not getting any Logi drones on him, as BSL is going down already while Tin is stabilizing. This is looking really good, actually, for only needing 2 comps.
You say that now, though, but since Tin had to run all the way into the backline, he has no defense, and a Brutix and Malediction are now charging straight into him. I don't think he's going to be able to run away for much longer. So the question is, did he buy enough time here?
Yeah, I think he is buying enough time. We see that Sam Punisher is already down into, into hull. I mean, he will be hull tanked, but I mean, if you can trade a Rodiva that is going right now 2,600, I mean, a Malediction will eventually catch him. The question is just, how far will that Malediction of Eva Zen have to go to get him, who's already down into, hull for having to go after the Rodiva. I mean, the Malediction goes down. There's nothing fast enough to really catch that Rodiva. I mean, Striker Eriker, isn't going to be in rep range of anything, and will go down in the Pontifex. So that will be some links off for only needing 2 comps. But I mean, Sam Punisher is already down into hull. I think they've more than bought enough time at this point.
Yeah, Tin Baron's showing some amazing piloting here. He did get tackled for a very short second, but the Malediction paid for it with its life, and now Tin is free to go around and mitigate damage and live to win. And at this point, they've traded for so much that even if Tin goes down, it's not going to be worth it.
No, I mean, Faffy Waffy and the Vexer will go down. Tin goes down at the same time, but that's Sam Punisher already down into hull. And so you have, an Aug Navy, a Brutix, and a Abaddon versus 2 battleships. and a Vedmak and an Og Navy, yeah, there's no way at this point that Localist Primary, aka only needing 2 comps, is going to lose this at this point. They're in a commanding position at the moment.
Yeah, and now that there's only a few ships left as well, the Armageddon can just pick one, shut that one's damage down, meaning that realistically it's only 2 damage ships effectively on grid here. So I think despite the attempted copy of Raifeisen's MGDs from yesterday, this one sadly isn't going to work out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference between MJDing and Abaddon of all things, right? Which doesn't really have any sort of utility. And Raifeisen, who's been, MJDing into the backline with things like
Balgorns.
Balgorns, yeah, thank you so much, that have the ability to really web and shut you down with newts. Abaddons just don't have any sort of utility besides, I guess, damage, and he was struggling to really track Tin Baron in that logistics. Ariotilla will go down. Probably we see a flight of light drones are chasing after him, and he does go down, but Skykiller down into Hull here, getting a fair amount of new pressure. We can see that the Armageddon and the Og Navy are on top of him at 0, and he will drop as Lily SG is into Hull at the same time.
Yeah, sadly, all that damage, but just not quite enough means to project it onto the enemy team, it looks like.
Yeah, and I mean, to the credit of Perjola, right, they did bring a very, very high projection setup. It's just that, Tin Baron is a pretty cracked logistics pilot, and he flew that near perfectly, and he bought himself enough time to just outtrade enough of the projection on Perjola for Localist Primary to get ahead.
Yeah, despite having very little defensive tackle, it took the Malediction, 2-3 minutes to get on top of them? And that's all the time in the world in a tournament match.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the benefits of some of these Triglavian logistics. They're really quite quick, actually. We saw that Tin was going at about 2.6, 2.7 at peak. So, I mean, that is difficult to catch, but like you were saying, you would have expected the Malediction, of all things, to get onto him a little bit quicker than he did.
I think one of the interesting plays to note here as well, with 2 command destroyers, those links being quite mobile. One of the things that we saw during that match is the Pontifex actually getting close to the Rodiva just to put some links on it, help it survive while it was tackled, and once it broke free, it's pretty much clear to go again.
Yeah, I mean, also credit to the Draugr of KitKat, who is also going to be applying links and applying some screen, and did do some amount of that in this match, making it more difficult for Perjola to get things done. Speaking of that, Draugr is down into essentially no armor, and we see Lily SG continue to try to apply some railgun damage to him, but KitKat does spool his micro jump drive likely out of range of the Brutix as he's down into Hull here. The Og Navy and the Armageddon now closing on top of that Brutix, applying newts. KitKat might go down in the end, but I mean, it's just for the Perjola trying to feel better about themselves, getting some more points.
Just to
good
get
fights.
the last kills at the end.
Yeah, and the Brutix will go down before the Draugr drops. Good fights in local. Arya and Damasus saying, see you in 2 hours, and I'm not disagreeing with them. More on that as we send it back to the desk.
Hello, everyone. That was an amazing match to watch there. Perjola Capital Supremacy really rolling the dice with a Logilus composition. Murray, can you just go through a little bit about what not bringing a logistics actually, provides to you from a comp perspective, and why you think Perjola went for that?
More damage, kill faster is the general basic plan of it, right? You've got a lot more points to leverage into damage, especially because logistics do tend to eat up a fair number of points. And so what you're looking for is to try and overwhelm a team very quickly and make the grid situation spiral out of control faster than they can try and stem the bleeding. Now, one thing that can slow it down or give you a little bit more breathing room as a Logilus comp is what Perjola tried at the start of the match, right? They went in and tried to headshot the Logi. If you headshot the Logi, then the whole match is just a DPS race. You're not on this timer where, like, if you don't kill certain things before you lose enough ships, you just auto lose. However, the Logi got out of range, and then they ended up taking a little bit of time trying to figure out how to either catch it or switch on to a different target. And that kind of in-between period is what lost the match.
Yeah, and it's probably worth talking about the Triglavian logistics as well, because they're a very unique mechanic with those ramping reps and also just the base stats that are allowed, given that they cost the same points as normal. Azure, can you talk a little bit about the upsides and downsides to bringing a Triglavian logistics ship in your composition?
Yeah, so the Rediva, fundamentally, when it starts doing its reps, it's doing about as much as a logistics frigate. But after it gets to a fully ramped rep, which it takes about a minute or so, it's doing as much reps as an Oneros, but it only costs 14 points. An Oneros would cost you 22. So you save a lot of points if you just say do a Rediva. The major downside, though, for the Rediva and for a Zarm is that you are dependent upon that sustained reps on a single target in order to get the maximum out of your reps. So if the other team just switches targets, you got to start over. And it's very difficult if a team is really on the ball about switching targets, especially say if they're switching between medium-sized like cruisers or destroyers. You just can't save them because as soon as the reps start landing, they go to something else, and you don't have time to actually get your reps sustained on any one target.
Yeah, and I have to say, we saw a really cool attempt at an MJD play. Those things have been taking up more and more of the tournament as we've gotten later on in the brackets, and people have had to bring all the tricks out of the bag. Could you go into a little bit about how those work, Murray, and what he was kind of trying to achieve there?
Yeah, so there's 2 MJD modules in the game, and in the tournament setting, the MFJD, or the Micro Jump Field Generator on the Command SEs, is generally banned. We had some show matches with it for fun, but what these folks are using is just the regular medium or large MJD on battle cruisers or battleships, where you spool up for about 5-6 seconds or so, then you launch yourself exactly 100 kilometers in the direction you're pointing. Now, generally speaking, it's not super often that you'll see these modules because the tournament is generally filled with a lot of very experienced players. They know you can do that, and they're very conscious about playing around those ranges because even ships that don't have those jump drives on the ship can use the jump beacons in the grid itself. So it's something you're very conscious about most of the time. And it ends up being this very careful balance of if you suspect somebody is going to try and do that, you're trying to juggle your range between 0 and 100, right? You're trying to get in a soft spot in the middle where either if they burn at you or they jump behind you, either way, they can't get on top of you and do what they want to do.
Yeah, it's probably worth noting that I think a reason we're seeing more of those is the recent buffs to capital EHP. Sorry, not capital EHP, battleship EHP. With the new bonuses to plate and shield extenders that those ships have, you can survive for quite a while and potentially allow your logistics to catch back up to you. And in the meantime, completely disrupt your opponent's game plan as they now have nowhere to run backwards and have to otherwise run forwards into the rest of your team. Still, it didn't quite work out there for Pajola, but that won't be the last that we see of them, as they will be playing Paper Numbers, the Volta Slayers, in just under an hour for their chance to get back into the grand finals and show us what we're made of in the best of 5, which I personally cannot wait for. But unfortunately, we do have to give them a little bit of a breather to set up their bands for the next match and get over all the adrenaline that's probably flowing through their brains after that amazing match. So we're going to take you through to a couple of show matches instead. And the first one is going to be Odin's Make-A-Wish versus Ultramarines. So, Azure, can you take us through a little bit about the flagships that we have been allowing in these show matches? What does that enable that we don't allow in normal tournament play?
Yeah, so the flagship, it's something that people familiar with the AT would know about. Basically, any team can pick a battleship, and it cannot be banned, and they get to have a lot more fun with the fitting because ordinarily ships are restricted to Tech 2 fittings or below. But with the capital or with the flagships, do whatever you want. Any officer fitting, any dead space, no meta restrictions at all. So the two teams have actually selected interesting flagships. Odin's Make-A-Wish did Barghest, and Ultramarines has done Nightmare. So that Nightmare is going to have like Vizan's pulses on it probably, and the Barghest will have Rapid Heavies and maybe have a officer scram so that it can protect itself, because these flagships are A, very valuable for their comps, and B, are going to probably be targets for MJD fields, because those are also legal.
Yeah, Murray, can you actually explain a little bit about the micro jump drive field generators and what those enable, and perhaps even the amazing play that we saw yesterday being brought to bear with them?
Yeah, for sure. So, like I said, they're typically banned in tournaments, but we're bringing them out in show matches for fun. The main difference between the micro jump field generator and the MJD specifically is that it can take other ships with it. So there are some restrictions on this. There's like a 25 ship cap on TQ. Obviously, that doesn't matter when there's only 14 people total on grid. But if somebody is within 6 kilometers of the jumping ship, both them and the ship jumping are not scrammed, then the jump will go through, and every ship, friendly or foe, will be taken with them, potentially out of the arena, which is what we ended up seeing yesterday, where a command destroyer turned a very tense duel between two Nightmare flagships into one Nightmare flagship sitting there, while the other one exploded instantly outside the arena.
Yeah, now, unlike normal, these show matches do have a lot on the line, with the winning teams being able to get a bevy of skins for their pilots. So they have something to fight for, and I am sure that they are both taking it very seriously. And in that regard, we actually have the bans in now, with Odin's Make-A-Wish banning the Barghest, Healer, Orthrus, Widow, Cerberus, and Curse. Sorry, no, not the Barghest. Sorry, just the Healer, Orthrus, Widow, Cerberus, and Curse. And Ultramarines banning the Zarmazd, Healer, Orthrus, Armageddon, and Balgorn. So we see two shared bans there in the Orthrus and the Healer between the two teams. What does that kind of imply to you, Azure? Why would the teams be banning those two ships in particular?
I mean, Gila is just an obvious ban in this tournament. It is the most banned ship, and when it's not banned, it's the most brought ship. So I think they're both banned because they don't want to run into Gilas, because they're just very strong. The Orthrus is sort of in a similar situation where it's a great rapid light ship. You can also put heavies on it, but tends to be rapid light fit, and they're really good at kiting. So if you're bringing a Barghest and you're not wanting to support it with Orthruses, you maybe want to make sure that the Orthruses can't outrun your Barghest.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's really interesting to see both teams going heavy on the bans for armor ships, even though both of the ships that they themselves have selected as flagships are shield. Do you think people are trying to mind game each other there, Murray, or are they worried about potential armor counters being brought out? Zio?
Oh, I think maybe they're trying to play a little bit of a mind game. So Ultramarines banning the Armageddon, the Balgorn, those are obviously two very powerful neuting ships, and they can cause a lot of problems. It may also be a situation of, typically we see a Barghest as a shield ship, but you can fit it as armor, and it's not terrible. And I guess it's also worth noting that Odin's Make-A-Wish and Ultramarines, these are two teams that know each other. They were probably practice partners, but Ultramarines, their captain Melinda was the captain for Odin's Call last AT. So there's going to be a lot of shared information between these two teams. So they may be playing into something that they've seen in practice that we just can't anticipate.
Yeah, we're just having a little bit of technical difficulties here, but we will have Murray back shortly to bring his wonderful, wonderful brain to bear on the analysis desk. I've got to say, you've been digging around quite a lot in the stats as well as And I think the stat that you brought out about the healer was absolutely fascinating. It's the only ship that's been brought more times than once on average when it's been open, right?
Yeah, so we've had, well, now we've had 60 matches. I don't have stats for the last one, though. But going in today, we had 59 matches, and the Gila had been banned in 45 of them. So it's only available 14 matches. But in those 14 matches, it had been brought 48 times. So on average, when Gila is open, we're seeing over 3. Each team is basically almost bringing 2 Gilas anytime they can, on average, which is insane. The closest is a Draugr we've seen 50 times throughout this tournament, but it's also been never been banned. So it's not one of these things where everyone is bringing it every chance they get. The Gila definitely is that way, and it's by a long shot the most popular ship to bring.
All right, well, we have the teams on grid here, so we're about to see some awesome action. Let's just get the predictions in. And of course, if you want to take part in the predictions, you can do so in Twitch chat and potentially earn yourself some skins if you get upwards of 10,000 points. Azure, who do you think's taking home the gold here?
I am going to go with Melinda and Ultramarine. I practiced against them and had a tough time, so I think they're a very good team. And I think I like the Nightmare flagship more than the Barghest. So I'm going to go with Ultramarines.
Murray, who do you think's winning here?
I'm going to live on pure hopium because we picked the Nightmare in the AT as a flagship because we thought it could beat the Barghest consistently. And so I'm going to pretend that was the right choice and say Ultramarines are going to take it.
I'm going to once again put my hopes and dreams on Ali Aris to carry Odin's Make-A-Wish to victory. But let's hand it over to the commentators who will be talking us through this match.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another match in the arena. We have Odin's Call against the Ultramarines. Odin's Call choosing to bring Barghest flagship, Guardian, Vagabond, Draugr, Magus, Kitsune, and a Sentinel.
Meanwhile, Ultramarines has... Or sorry, not Ultramarines. That is Odin's Make-A-Wish. Yeah, no, Ultramarines. They have brought a fairly similar comp to yesterday, changing the broadswords out for 2 Onyxes, a Nightmare for the flagship, an Osprey, T1 Logi, an Osprey Navy, a Stork, and a Skybreaker. They've both come in at really long ranges opposing each other, so it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, with the Nightmare having a bit of an advantage on being able to put DPS out immediately across this arena.
Yeah, interestingly enough, we see that, both teams, not surprising to see, these kind of kitey comps come in at range. Already, we see that damage is coming onto this Armor Kitsune, taking some damage from presumably the Nightmare of Melinda, some damage coming back onto shields as the Magus of Meat Shield, Umanger, and this Barghest, as well as the Draugr, are beginning to navigate themselves around. The Sentinel of Shad Ambs harassing that Nightmare, getting some tracking disruption at range here. The Nightmare is now sitting on this tournament micro jump drive beacon at the very center of the arena, as the rest of the Odin's and Ultramarines team are continuing to try to position themselves.
Yeah, you can see they're playing very defensively. Only Melinda, who has the off-fit Nightmare, so a lot tankier than the rest of his team, is pushing out into the front. But meanwhile, the rest of his team is hanging back really far.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this Nightmare being flagship fit even really cares if they get tackled down, frankly. We see that the Magus of Meat Shield is closing along with the Draugr what it looks like for tackle on top of that Nightmare. And the Barghest is continuing to nuke the Nightmare. We see a scram on the Nightmare for what little good that will do. The Nightmare being almost certainly very blingy afterburner fit.
Yeah, we saw both the Draugr and the Magus get quite close to Melinda. It looks like they might have been trying to sneak their way in for an MGD attempt there, but they quickly pulled away a little bit. They're playing still quite defensive. It doesn't look like anybody's really ready to commit and go all in just yet.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that actually that could be a defensive scrim from the Onyx, actually, as we see the Hick on top of him. One of the rules in these Joe matches is that you are allowed to MJD each other out of the arena, which is a bit, different from what we're used to in normal rules. So, not wanting to have your flagship getting boosted out of the grid is probably what we're seeing out of the Onyx here right now.
Yeah, actually, a really interesting play. Instead of a scram from an offensive, it was actually the Onyx tackling their own Nightmare just to make sure that it couldn't get MGD'd out. For
Yeah,
people
I
that
mean,
don't know, scrams are the only thing that can stop an MGD field from actually being effective. An attempt was made here. Oh, and it was successful. Melinda got MGD'd off to about 100 kilometers from the center. But a Draugr will not be able to keep the Nightmare pinned down, so it's only a matter of time for that Nightmare to pull back into the center of the arena. But now things are going to get really spicy into the center and try and see who is going to brawl in and commit on what targets.
yeah, I mean, you're going to expect some more amount of teams committing as Stoish is being primaried. We see rapid heavy missiles being applied to him right now and some paint, so he will be the primary as Melinda is continuing to try to get closer to the center of the arena. And Stoish burning for his Nightmare buddy, trying to prevent another boosh as the Draugr of Ensign is being knitted out very, very heavily by the Nightmare of Melinda.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind, those MGD fields do have quite a long cooldown, but when now we see the Magus of Meat Shield burning in there, if he can manage to get another MGD off, that means, oh, he's trying! Is Melinda going to get MGD out of the arena again? Oh, and
Yes,
he
he will.
misses!
Oh my, wait, no, he missed. Oh my God, I
He
was focused on the
missed!
wrong thing. Yeah, that would be the Onyx. Yeah, that would be the Onyx putting a defensive scram onto the Nightmare. Had that defensive scram not been there, that would have been a kill. But we're getting confirmation from CCP Zealous that that was 151 kilometers off of the arena, and now the Sentinel and the Draugr are down.
I
Really
think
well played.
they're sadly paying for that attempt with their life, as Odin's Make-A-Wish only now has a Guardian, a Vagabond, and a Bargus left to somehow win the day.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say for Aliara, she's being rather neuted and primaried by all of these missiles from these Onyxes and the Nightmare, and she will go down here as only the Barghest and the Vagabond remain.
Yeah, that could have been a very close situation there. If the Nightmare did get MGD'd out of the match, Melinda's team would not have had a lot of DPS left to win this one with anymore.
Yeah, I mean, just really good presence of mind from the Onyx of Stoish, getting back on top of, his Nightmare buddy, making sure that the Nightmare didn't get booshed out of the arena. We see that the Bargus Devault is continuing to score kills. We see that the Osprey does go down, and now the Stork goes down, and that will be the Lynx. I mean, the
Yeah.
Bargus will be flag fit, so I mean, he's more than likely capable of getting a kill or two here before eventually he does go down under the new pressure from Melinda.
Yeah,
We
the
see that
sheer
the
damage of an officer fit showing itself here. He managed to take down an Onyx in record time, but he is now taking significant damage. If he can have enough shots ready to go on those rapid heavies and kill another Onyx here, it's going to be down to if he can tank a Nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that Ali Aris was in a Guardian, so this will be an armor fit Barghest. It will be interesting to see how that works. I mean, you do get very powerful officer tank, but the Barghest slot layout just does not lend itself well to a strong, tank just by the nature of not having a lot of low slots. We see that the Barghest is continuing to just get neuted out, is being held down by Stoish in that hit scramming him, and the Nightmare is just continuing to slam it with newts.
Yeah, one of the critical differences here is that those rapid heavies have a long reload. You can see he was doing so much damage a while ago. Just now, finally, he's starting to apply some damage again. But I think it's
Yeah,
going to be too little too late to do much else here.
yeah. I mean, we can see that the Insil of Stoish is having to work overtime to keep himself up, as he's used about a little over half his charges right now. And I mean, he'll probably get the kill on Stoish here. Well, maybe not, as he's dropping down into Hull here. Stoish will be almost out of charges at this point. So actually, no, he will manage to kill the Bargus before he goes down. Good presence of mind by that Onyx, keeping Odin's from basically turning the match with the MJD play. Plenty more for the desk to say about that, though.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. So we will be seeing Ultramarines in the show match finals later on today after we see Paper Numbers and Pajola Capital Supremacy compete in the losers finals. So I can't wait to see if they are able to redeem themselves and make some, not just redeem themselves, but continue with their excellent positional awareness. Murray, we're seeing a lot of these heavy interdictors used. Can you go over a little bit about the upsides and the downsides to them, and maybe a little bit about why we aren't seeing them in the regular tournament?
So the most interesting thing about heavy interdictors is the module they have that is a high slot module that allows them to point and scram. Now, it has a lot of uses on TQ because it is the only infinite point, and so it's something used very frequently to hold down supers and titans. But here, the most useful features thereof are the fact that the scram is much longer range than a mid-slot scram, and the long point on a hick actually also prevents booshing. So even though it doesn't turn off an MWD as the scram does, it can prevent these cheeky boosh plays from a much longer range. Now, the downside to that is that while that module is cycling, the hick itself can't receive reps. However, hicks are generally pretty tanky, so they're kind of built in mind in terms of being able to turn it off and then catch reps without dying instantly. As for why we haven't seen a lot of hicks in the tournament, hicks are a rush meta ship. They're beefy, they're not super fast, and they do a good amount of damage with close range weapons, but basically none with long range weapons. They have no projection bonuses, not really tracking bonuses. So in a meta where you're not seeing a whole lot of rush comps, particularly shield rush, there really just isn't a place for these ships.
Yeah, and Azul, we saw some really interesting ship choices from Odin's Make-A-Wish there, with them bringing the Vagabond, the Barghest, and all sorts of ships you don't often see brought at armor. What's the advantages to bringing traditionally shield-fit ships in an armor setup?
Well, the one thing that a shield fit ship or shield ships tend to have is lots of mid slots, and particularly when you know that the opponent is going to be wanting to bring a specific weapons type because of their flagship, either lasers or missiles, you can start fitting lots of utility into those mids. Extra scrams to protect yourself from MJD fields. You can put lots of tracking or guidance disruption. So they bring a lot of utility. So you sometimes see that in tournament play where someone will fit, say, a Merlin, which is obviously almost always a shield ship, but it brings 4 mid slots and can fit an acceptable armor tank. You bring it as a utility support ship.
Right, well, we do actually have an interview with one of the show match captains here, so let's hand it over to some words I had earlier this week with Charlie the Chair, the captain of tournament team. And what team do you represent?
I go by Charlie the Chair, and I fly with Tournament Team.
So, where does tournament team draw its members from?
So most of us are from Wildcard, a couple PL, and then we had some other token members. Most of us are just nano gangers, small gang, pretty much whatever's fun. We like fighting outnumbered. A lot of the guys know each other from the PL's AT team.
Is there anything that you think is really going to give your team an edge in these show matches?
All of us just really play various games together and just get along really well. All throughout my practices and everything, it's a stressful time, and there was never a time where anyone was frustrated with each other, even on the long nights where we're just slogging through comps and everything, and we're losing matches, and it's just frustrating. No one got to the point where there's any yelling or any chest beating or anything. It was just a fun time pretty much the whole time.
Are there any styles or comps of play that you really enjoy getting to bring to the tournament?
I feel like kiting comps are just way more enjoyable than brawling comps. Brawling comps are fun to an extent, but kiting comps is just really where you have to put all of your muscle memory and all of your skill into it, because like if you get caught, you're dead, and that's just, there's no tanking or anything. There's no over like there's no luck to it to me. You have to. It's just pure skill.
What do you think about the micro jump drive field generators being allowed in these show matches? Is it something you're looking forwards to?
I'm super excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and even though people think on the out or on the offshoot that it's going to be overpowered, which I don't think in tournament play it really belongs there, but I think in these show matches it's just going to be a lot of fun.
Would you encourage the people that are listening to try their own hand at tournament gameplay?
I think everyone should be trying to get to this gameplay. It is some of the most fun I've ever had in Eve, and it's consistent. It's not you're taking the sandbox aspect of Eve out of it, and you're just having scheduled PvP, and you're in this box that you have to figure out how to beat all of these different puzzles, and it's just one big puzzle after another, and I love it.
Do you have any advice for someone who's looking to get into tournament play?
Be humble and find yourself a role that's not a battleship. Everyone wants to be the big DPS guy, but it's just important to be the tackle pilot or the links pilot. There's a lot of roles out there that you can fill that's not just doing DPS.
All right, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
I mean, I just really want to tell everyone that participated that I'm super proud of them, no matter where they landed in placing or anything. I'm just really, really happy with the turnout, and it's been awesome.
Just encouraging you to get involved in the tournament scene yourself. I can't recommend it enough. I was also a captain in this tournament, and whilst I went 0-2, it was an absolute blast to spend a couple of months knowing that every night, every weekend, I would have as much PvP as I could stomach without having to engage in any PvE to take part in it. Can't recommend it enough, and I would encourage you to either look into your own alliances and see if they have a tournament team, or if they don't have one, set one up yourself. It's not that hard to do. If I can do it, anyone can. Anyway, let's get ready to talk about this match coming up against Ramrod Reloaded versus Tournament Team, which is the second of our show fights to determine who will be in the Grand Show Fight Finals. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the flagships. Azure, what can you tell me about the Balgorn and the Barghest? We've talked a little bit about the Barghest before, but what does the Balgorn really offer when it's got the faction modules allowed to it?
Well, an officer fit Balgorn is simply one of the strongest ships that you could possibly bring in a tournament. Officer newts, good range, good newting power. The officer webs, because the Balgorn brings a web bonus, you can hit someone at 60 kilometers without breaking a sweat with one of those. They're so strong that the last AT, they were specifically banned as a flagship. You were not allowed to bring them as a flagship. But Sothersil, in his infinite wisdom, did not make that decision for these show matches. So Ramrod has chosen to bring what is almost certainly the strongest flagship they possibly could. And they're going up against a Barghest, which is a good flagship as well. Certainly with the officer fitting on it, you could put a good scram on it. And we just saw that even as an armor fit Barghest, it was fairly effective on its own. It was able to get some kills even after the rest of its support wing had died in the last fight. So it's a good ship. I think what Ramrod has done, though, is they have also banned Barghest. So tournament team can still bring a flag Barghest, but they can only bring one Barghest. And that really does limit the utility of that Barghest because they tend to work better in pairs.
Yeah, probably because of the rapid heavy missile launchers that they use. Typically, you see them used in something called a Kingslayer, where you will dump two of your Barghests, you'll run them right in towards the enemy logistics and just fire your rapid heavy missile launchers the whole way. And normally that'll allow you to kill them before anything else can happen. Effectively trying to do the same thing as a no logistics comp, except by front loading your DPS rather than just bringing more DPS ships. Anyway, the bans for this match are really interesting. Ramrod Reloaded going a little more standard, banning out, as you said, the Barghest, along with the Healer and Curse. But Tournament Team banned the Zarmaz, Draugr, and Pontifex, really trying to take the Bushes out of the equation here. Murray, do you think we'll see a Magus? And, do you think that this is something that could potentially interrupt what Radikos is trying to do? Murray?
So they're trying to make it a little awkward in terms of the points on the low end, right? They can bring one Magus, and that's fine. But if they bring two, then that additional points rule comes in, and it makes it harder for them to get more ships in on the low end that are particularly useful. And so, at the very least, the boosh options will be a bit more limited. One of the other big things is you can see all those bans are focused on armor ships, because the Balgorn is a very one-dimensional flagship. It's very strong, but you know exactly what kind of comp is coming with it, because it really only slots into armor control. And it's not going to be a rush, it's not going to be some kiting comp, and so you have a much better idea of what your opponents are going to try and bring, and so you can target your bans towards it much more effectively.
Now, it is worth noting that even though these teams have selected a flagship, it doesn't mean that they have to bring one. Azure, can you tell me a little bit about how that went for yourself?
Well, it depends on the situation, but if you select a Balgorn as your flagship, you should probably bring it. Because I will tell you from personal experience that two Barghests will not beat a Balgorn and a Leshak, as I found out yesterday. Which I think is a good thing to point out is with tournaments, teams spend a lot of time practicing and a lot of time preparing. And it is possible, if you do a good job with your comp selection and you're doing your bans the right way, you can put yourself in a very good position to win before you even hit the grid. If you have the right counter to what you know the opponent wants to bring, it makes your job a lot easier as a team. Once you hit the grid, you're able to have a lot more margin for error. You don't have to fly perfectly, you just have to fly well. And certainly that a little bit of leeway in your execution is something that you're going to go for. So when you can, bring a good flagship. I recommend it.
All right, well, the teams are now in the arena. We're just waiting for someone to get over a little crash, so we have slightly more time than usual to go over our predictions. Murray, who do you think's taking home the W here?
I'm leaning towards Ramrod. I think the Balgorn flagship is just very, very strong, and even with the targeted bans against it, you can't disrupt it enough to force it to lose.
And who do you think's going to win as your?
I'm also going to go with Radikos and Ramrod. We've been practice partners for a little bit now. We've run up against each other in the tournament a couple times. They're a good team, but I think more than anything, that Balgorn is just going to be so strong. Barghest can do something creative against it, but fundamentally armor control, especially in a 7-man setup, is so good that I think the tournament team is facing an uphill climb.
Personally, even though I do agree with you, I think Ramrod is more likely to win here. I have to hope that tournament team is able to pull something out, because we are going to have the pleasure of both of the captains here, Chair from tournament team and Radikos from Ramrod Reloaded, coming onto the desk after the match is over to give us their opinions and talk about a little bit more about how the match went, so you can see the kind of emotional state captains are in right after a match finishes. And I want to see Tiltakos in its full force. That said, the teams are now landing on grid. We just got a couple of seconds here before we're able to transition over. And that looks good to go. So, Wingnut, Mazir, take it away.
G'day there, mates. Welcome to this show match, Ramrod versus, and I forgot the name already, Tournament Team.
Tournament Team.
Yes, and we're going to, a beautiful match, of course. We know the flagships here, and I believe both of them are on grid, yes? Yes. Ooh. Sorry.
Yeah, we have Radikos in the Ramrod flagship, and we have Destroyer in the tournament team Barghest, and 15 seconds remaining. So, quick going through the comps. Ramrod brought a Leshak Balgon, Magus, 2 Logi Frigates, Tech 2, a Vexor, and a Tormentor. What did the tournament team bring?
Well, they bought their bugs, but it is a torpedo bug at 0 with a Scorpion Navy. They've got Osprey as well, Stork, Bifrost, Manticore, and Skybreaker as the match is underway. And I wonder if that's a... I'm just going to check if that's a torpedo Scorpion too.
Yeah, I think they realized they can't really kite well when there's like an officer fit Balgon on the grid, so they might as well go all in and look at that Leshak building to that fat torpedo DPS. Like, they're not fooling around. They're going to murder that thing, and they want to kill it fast.
And that is the weakness of this comp, unfortunately, is that the Leshak is pretty much the sole core of DPS in their entire comps, and they brought only missiles, so the newts don't care. So they don't care about newts, sorry. So this Leshak, if it dies, it's over. And the Leshak is going down fast. Obviously, the Logi Frigate are trying their best to save him, but that is about, I don't even want to try and guess, like 2,000 DPS trying to kill him.
Yeah, this is a real situation. They took the Ramrod guys and caught them with the pants down. And the Leshak gun, the combined DPS of a top bag is a top Scorpion Navy issue, and the Manticore is just spine-breaking for these battleships. And now it's Radica's turn in the flag Balgon. He might have some shiny tanking modules, but I think he'll be crushed under these torpedoes rather quickly as well.
Yeah, you can have as much tank as you want, but it's not going to matter because, again, it's like 2,000 DPS kicking him in the teeth. And meanwhile, that Skybreaker from Tonal Ownage has been trying to delete these drones as well. So even if he has any reps from Logi drones, that will also die. So unfortunately, I suspect it is not going to go well for the beloved Ramrod team. Oh, no.
It looks like the Skybreaker is burning off towards Micro Trump beacon. Like, he's trying, but he's going for the Tormentor and trying to save the Manticore, but it's too late. The Manticore does go down, but I think it's been worth the points helping kill off that Leshak so quickly.
Yep, T1 frigate just goes over there, kills off the Manticore, comes back. But they are doing good damage to the bug, but I suspect the Osprey should be able to keep him up, especially because the bug is blinged out the wazoo.
Yeah, so the Manticore pilot, Cyclo Hexanol, posted a local that was rather rude. So he's not liking the Tormentor killing him, but why does it matter? Because that Balgon is taking a fair amount of damage.
I will admit, I'm surprised he is still tanking as well as he is. They are holding him right at about 30% armor, but he is starting to slowly go down. A bit of damage going on to a Vexor as well, so it's probably Skybreaker damage. They could
so it looks like the Star and the Bagist is struggling a little bit. The Balgon does have guns, and he is nuding the Bagist, but they still have the Osprey flown by Lucas Kwan to wrap him up, so I don't think they can kill this Bagist, even though it was dipping a little bit low shield. Same time, the Balgon half armor dipping a little bit, but doing the best to repair up.
So the Magus of Backslack, I think it went in for the boost there, but it did not help. Honestly, he should burn over to the Osprey and boost that. I don't know why he's staying in range of this Bargus who's holding him down. Just burn away and boost the Osprey away and get the DPS, so get the Logi off of this Bargus. Meanwhile, what's the Bifrost of Yoyaz doing? He's doing something. He's not even setting up an MJD or anything. He's just flying around. Okay, have a good one, buddy. Oh, fair enough. I missed that bit. MJD a beacon, apparently.
Yeah, the beacon is like way out of range now, and could easily be killed off, but they're just going for the Balgon instead, trying to power through.
I think the Megas heard me. Nope, never mind. He's not going towards that. But
so we have the Vexor. Vexor's chasing off the Osprey, so it's going to take some reps off the Bagist, but like Bagist all has wrapped up to full health again. Doesn't look like so the Balgon did. Is he shooting Scorch? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not going to matter, unfortunately. Unless the Deacon can get back in time, which I definitely don't think he can. That
he's shooting Scorpion, but the guns are not green. Like, why are you not shooting Conflag? Are you running out of cap? Radicos.
What one are you firing? Oh no. Who missed the MJD? The Magus?
I mean, at this point, I don't really seem like they need to do much. Right, it's the Gunpowder.
Again. The Deacon has arrived, and the Balgon is again starting to tank. So they can maybe, just maybe, hold this. If they push one of those Logi Frigs off, he is dead. But at the moment, it's just holding. It's ECM drones coming on Nathalia, giving him a hard time. And the Osprey is getting damaged, but he's only got a Vexer and a Magus doing damage. I'm sorry, not Magus, correction, sorry, Tormentor.
Yeah, in the meantime, like, both the Vex and Tormentor on top of that, the Osprey are killing him off. He might be going down, but at the same time, the Bargon is really struggling. He's running out of armor, just repping a little bit and bleeding structure. And, he's catching red again. I think like the Deacon did go back in range again. But really, this is like a situation where showing how much these Blink tank mods can do. Like the Leshek went down like a paperback, and the Bargon has been tanking for so long.
It's ECM drones and the Thalia as well, which might have broken his lock, as he's been moving around, but he's gonna be gone. There it goes, flag bow down. He held out for way longer than expected, but unfortunately there is nothing he can do against about 2,000 DPS. I can see Jin cheering, you bugger. Emerson linking kill mail as well. So yeah, that's the match over, unfortunately. There's nothing they can do. Bravo to a tournament team for sure.
Yeah, I think it was clever play of them to bring a brawling comp to take the Ramrod team with the pants down. Like, we have talked earlier in this tournament about we don't really see Torbargers that often. But in this situation, they did actually make it work by simply taking this control setup by surprise and hammering through their defense. And we've seen the Killmates being linked in local. There's a lot of purple stuff in them.
Yeah, the joys of Thunderdome. You can make some ridiculous stuff, and yeah, he did really well. He tanked really well on that ship. Unfortunately, the rest of the ships are being dead. They did get the Osprey, so you know.
So looking at the numbers, Leshek took 60,000 damage. Meanwhile, the Bargon took more than double that with 146,000 damage.
Yep, he tanked a ridiculous amount. But again, I think honestly the Boosh off taking the Deacon out of the Logi range was definitely a massive point there. Where it went from holding to losing hull as a Vex now goes down as expected. This is unfortunate, and the Magus is still tackled, by the way. The Magus got tackled by a Skybreaker, and then he's not able to get break free since. So he's been suffering. Let me check that.
Deacon CCP Seals just confirms it's 226.6 kilometers. So that might actually be within the record range, or at least within the Hall of Fame. At this point, it's just the cleanup, but we're seeing the weakness of the tournament team setup. Like, they have this big torpedo damage, but they can't really apply that well to the small ships. So they are like 100% reliant on the Ramrod bringing big battleships for them to shoot, and they did bring that. So the plan did work out. And it looks like the Bifrost of the Yogas is going for a beacon. Might be trying to do some MJD play, or maybe just trying to get the record. Like, he's yeeting himself out.
180, yeah, not enough. So interesting. 226 for Tank. Tank is also one of probably the best Logi parts we have in the team in Ramrod. Tank is honestly amazing. So the fact that he also got a really, really high boundary as well. Bravo, my man. But unfortunately, the team is being pulled apart. People are just mucking about. Damn it. I wanted him to win. And now the Magus of back is begging to be let go so he can do it as well.
Charlie the Chair just yeeted did he yeet himself out? Like, he at least did end out of the arena with the Scorpion Navy issue.
Yes. Well, they actually, I will admit, they're struggling quite hard to kill this Magus. It's going to take a while.
At this point, I think like they're just fooling around. The Vargas has started to burn away from everything. He's burning towards the central beacon. He might be going for the yeet as well. Maybe just memeing around.
Yeah, for those asking each other, this is a special match, so MJDs were allowed, like MJD destroyers, and also we had flagships as well, so only one ship can be fitted with all the purple bling, everything else is T2 fitted. This is also on Thunderdome, so yes, those ships didn't actually explode and lose money, but it's fine. Someone else just boundary for 224 kilometers. Oh, there we go, 30-second timer, there we go. So this is mostly a match for fun, guys, but it's obviously just, it's a beautiful chaos, come on. And people will have grudge matches as well. I don't know what the Vargas is doing. He's just burning away because he wants to stay away from the Megas, I guess. I don't know.
He's turning around and going for the central beacon again, but at this point, like, he cannot reach it in time before the match is over, so he fails to kill himself, and his team have to accept the victory as the tournament team wins this show match. And back to the studio.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Unfortunately, we are still waiting for Tiltacos to get back and for Chair to finish unmuting themselves and getting over everything. So, Wingnut, what a match there. We saw everything devolve from our usual death match to what effectively amounts to EVE Online's Olympics, as all types of people trying for the world record in the long jumping. What did you make of that match?
Oh, hello. We just got a person into chat. Never mind. I didn't need my words at all.
Oh, there we go. Hey, Radikos and Chair both here. So
for the cameras, I need a link, or you guys they won't hear me.
It's all good. They can hear you.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh, fantastic! What's up?
I'll just pretend to be you.
All right. So, Chair. First of all, how does it feel to be the victor and be in the grand finals of the show matches?
It feels great, man. I played my bands perfectly, and I knew exactly what Radikos was gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't plan to have any other bands and do any other stuff because we liked what we had. So, the big deal is not going after you right away and going after Destoya. That was probably the biggest mistake.
Yeah, it was fun though.
We would have held if we had been taken out you in the SNI, and you were dropping. So that's just the way it is. But it was awesome, though. I thought it was a pretty good match. The second that they said that Sindraken wasn't holding in the Leshek, I knew that you guys had brought Torps, and his time was very limited.
Yeah, it was a good meme, good brawling meme.
Hell yeah.
No bushes to be had though. That was sad.
Yeah, well,
he tried.
He tried. Yeah, I think we all kind of tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone did. Everyone tried to. It was fun to watch.
We were. I was trying to get Yoyaz to come boosh me off of the MJD as I MJD'd, so that we would try and get a double boosh in.
That would have been sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually saw someone boosh and just stop themselves at 125 kilometers there, which is the edge of glory, as it's known. You go just a couple of meters further and you will be exploderated by our wonderful refs. That said, we're about to see the losers finals match here between Pajola Capital Supremacy and Paper Numbers. So let's throw it over to an interview that we actually did and showed yesterday with Reiferson, the co-captain of Paper Numbers. What team are you representing?
So I'm Rifey. On paper, I'm leader of Paper Numbers, but honestly, it's more or less Yalti currently. And I'm like the co-captain of Paper Numbers team, and I'm leading the upper end, so the battleships, battlecruisers, main DPS.
What groups does your team draw from, and what do they do on Tranquility?
The three main corps in our alliance currently all came from Literary Trigger before, which was a soft alliance that is currently still part of Winterco. Like the last member of the old Tri Alliance, which was Lordi, DTS, and Eltric. But I think all the other ones got kicked, and Eltric is still in Winterco, and they're doing pretty fine right now. And we were mostly the German part, and we split off, and now live in C2.
What's your favorite ship to fly in the tournament?
My favorite ship to fly is... It's hard to say. I would say it's the Armageddon. It's one of my most favorite ships of all time. Sadly, I couldn't fly it so far because a lot of people tend to ban it for some reason. I don't know. Maybe because it's really good with the long range ute. But I really like TFI as well. That's, I think, the ship I flew most in all tournaments so far.
What edge do you think Paper Numbers has that's allowed them to get into this final weekend?
We have really good fits that are really on the edge of what's possible. Like, we refined every fitting to the maximum. And we did a lot of scrimming beforehand. Like, we were training for the last AT a lot with the main core as well. And now for just the Anger Games, we had like 3 or 4 months, at least one training a week. And we really used all the trainings to improve our comms, improve our fits, so they match very well together.
So have there been any plays or moments that you're particularly proud of so far in this tournament, either from yourself or one of your teammates?
I think the call, like the last game, we predicted they bring Leshak, and we just brought a comp where we knew we can just straight up kill a Leshak with no problems, and it just worked like a charm. And I had a few pretty decent MJDs in the one match against the Gila Kiting comp. Like usually I'm pretty happy with one good MJD, and like every MJD I did in that match was on point. But we had a few training sessions just MJDing all night.
So are there any other teams that you're particularly looking forwards to playing against?
Like I really want revenge on Volt B for kicking us down in the losers bracket. But honestly, they look very strong. I think it's Volta's main team. With like Planet 6's Logi is really, really strong. Circle Freak and all those guys. Like they were stomping me like when I started playing 6 years ago, and they were good back then. And I think they didn't get worse, they got better. So it would be really hard to get there, a win there. But I would really see forward if we could stomp them.
Down from across Jove space. So let's make this quick. Wingnut, who do you think is going to take home the victory here?
Riferson. I don't care about his team. Riferson. He's going to win. The MJD king himself. Paper numbers, they're my vote.
Chair, who do you think is going to take home the victory in this winners finals?
I'm also going with paper numbers because they've just been doing so great in the losers bracket. I hope they keep going.
You know what? I think I'm going to have to be the villain then and say that this is the time where the clock strikes midnight and paper numbers Cinderella runs out. They're facing off against a really experienced tournament team here in Darkside, plus a couple of Vidra members. But let's hand it over to Wingnut and Mizir to see how it all plays out.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the arena. This is the finals of the lower bracket. So the winner of this match is going to the grand finals where they're going to meet, they only need 2 comps. And we have in red, we're having paper numbers, and in blue, we're having Pujola Capital something. Wingnut, can you tell me about the setups they brought?
Yep, so paper numbers bringing Leshak, Oneros, Rook for their control, Navy Org, Draga, Mauler, Merlin, Pujola bringing Fleet Typhoon, a single one, with a Loki, Osprey, Gila, Navy Osprey, Stork, and Jackdaw. So a Gila did get brought, but this time it was only one Gila. But this is a very interesting comp to see, definitely from both sides. It's going to be a very beautiful match as the match just goes underway.
Yeah, definitely 2 very different comps. The Pujola have been having so much success with the kiting missile comps, and with Fluffy Waffy in the Osprey, like some of the best Osprey piloting I've seen in tournaments, and they are sticking to their plans. These are talented nanopilots. And you can see like the red team of the paper numbers actually are burning a bit back, while the blue team are burning in.
I'm seeing tracking instructions as well from, I believe, the Stork? Hold on, yeah, is it the Stork? Onto the Leshak. So he's having trouble shooting at the moment. I think he's currently shooting at the Stork. Riferson did not MJD this time. He played it slow and smart. So no.
We've seen the Orca Navy of Maddox moving in to intercept some of these from burning in. Pujola team are playing really aggressive, but they're trying not to get scrammed by anyone. So they're trying to circle under the team and get into the back line. You've seen the healer of Olola getting really close to some of those backline ships. Meantime, the Typhoon Fleet issue and the other cruisers are also right behind him.
Yeah, the worst thing about a Gila in your backline is doesn't even need to stay there. It just needs to go up, fire some missiles, drop some drones on you, then turn around and leave. So that Gila being that close is definitely a threat to these smaller ships of this comp.
You're having the Mauler of the CEO trying to go in and intercept. Like, a healer is turning around, like getting chased by the Draugr. So they still trying not to get scrammed as it going for that backline. And meantime, there's a Merlin of Slonka is taking damage. Like, it is an armor Merlin, so he still have a bunch of tank remaining. And Loki and the Osprey also taking damage across the field.
Yeah, at the moment, damage is definitely spread everywhere. No one's really got their advantage just yet. Both Logis have been pressured a little bit, but not massively. So everyone's still just jockeying for their position and their moment. Just having a look in the middle. I think, yeah, Leshak's just burning around. He hasn't been tackled by anyone. No one's even attempted to slow him down. He's not particularly fast to begin with, but yeah, definitely a little bit. Actually, see some damage onto Loki now. Looks like Leshak has been spooling up on the Loki for a little while. And if they don't stop him from doing that or pull away, he can just push the Loki solo.
Yeah, the Loki has the long range Ripifire, so they're definitely important defensive ship they're having on the gain so much advantage on the field. Meantime, Eva in the Jackdaw is taking a lot of damage, catching reps, but one good shot from the Leshak could spell the doom of this Jackdaw.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. I think it's the Augur Navy that's the thing killing him. I don't think I see anyone else shooting him at the moment. I believe it's just the Aug Navy. You know what? I'm not seeing.
Yeah,
anyone
definitely having the
doing
Aug Navy chasing him, and the Stork and the Typhoon like being right next to like Jackdaw, trying to cover a bit.
Look at the Loki. He's getting to low shields here. It's getting real
In the
dangerous.
meantime,
Shots. Oh, well, the Jackal's about to go.
The Leshak has pushed far into the back line, trying to force the Osprey to burn around to catch up to these ships taking damage. Like, the Jackdaw is so far away from the Osprey. Like, this could be like the first kill of the match as the Jackdaw is entering structure. With the Jackdaw down, like we've seen and the Jackdaw is down, so the Paper Numbers team are having the advantage now. They're also pushing the Loki in armor. Like, they're in a comfortable position right now. Their own Loki is in a really good position, like being defensive. So the Augur Navy is taking damage, but it's a tanky cruiser, so I think he's comfortable right now. Loki is down.
The way he was trying his best to run away from this Leshak, he was going as far away as he could, but he just could not pull the range. And the interesting part now is actually the Osprey is now directly in front of the Leshak, and is now.
Yeah, the Leshak is like burning hard for that Osprey.
He was already going that direction.
He's shooting the Osprey. Like, he might even kill him before he can get into neuting range. Looks like did he swap target? Oh yes, he did. He's swapping target, but he's still pushing that Osprey away. They can't rep anyone, and that Merlin is burning in for the Osprey, and nothing to screen for the Osprey. Like, the Osprey is going to get tackled, and that is completely like a game over for the Pagiola team. Like, the Gila is taking a heavy amount of shield damage. Paper Numbers is so comfortable.
I don't think he cares about the Osprey in any way. He can push through and kill the Loki. Who cares about the Osprey? Just go for the Gila next. At the moment, his team is doing well. The Osprey is starting to get pressured quite a bit. But all he has to do now is stay alive long enough as the Gila goes down. Doesn't have to be forever, just long enough that his team gets the complete win here. So again, this is their team. That's their match to win.
Yeah, one thing is Rook is starting to take damage, and I think Rook has really played a key role in this match. We haven't talked much about it since he's been sitting comfortable behind and jamming stuff, but he has definitely made it really hard for the blue team to actually get anything done. Like, forcing them to go and deal with him, because otherwise you can just jam them off whatever they're shooting. At this point, the Osprey Navy issue is on top of him, but it's easy for this Oneos to wrap him up. And once the Osprey Navy issue runs out of missiles for the clip, like, you can't really do much.
Saw that Merlin's shield go from 0 to 100 on an armor comp. Did the Osprey maybe accidentally rep him, or maybe he has an ancillary or something? I was very confused by that. Oh, well, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, as you said, the Rook has been in this match the entire time quietly. And that Rook has been just quietly doing his work the whole way through. And honestly, we didn't say a thing, but he probably carried the entire match. They couldn't do anything about this.
And it's like one of these like stereotypical ECM pilots, just sitting there for themselves, rubbing their hands, doing the supervillain laugh, and having this really fancy mustache. They're just ruining the day of the Pagiola team. As the Osprey Navy issue is going down. So just the Typhoon remaining.
Yeah, and there's nothing he can do. He's dead, unfortunately. He's been trying his best, and he's actually kept himself away from being scrammed this entire time while applying damage, but there's nothing he can do. He could try his best, but he's done. The Merlin is still alive. I don't know how. That Merlin should not exist. But they've done very well. And this time, Ryerson did not MJD once. And honestly, I think we were talking about this before, is that we all expect the MJD. That if he doesn't do it, that's even more surprising.
I think on Leshak, you don't really have the mids for it, so you're reliant on the beacons. Leshak is only having 4 mids, and you need like a prop mod, a cap boost, some form of tackle, like a tracking computer. But still, he's been really good at pushing and making it hard for the Pajola team to get in and get something done, because if they got too close to Leshek, they will get muted out, they will get grappled, and they will get murdered.
And no, like they at least tried it, but no one even attempted to stop him for even a moment. So he had free reign across the entire battlefield. The only thing that could really slow him down was the Loki, and he went for that first. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. As the Typhon fleet is now going through Hull. Good fights are in local. Good on these guys.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic piloting of the paper numbers team. Like, we had the casters predicting Padula to win, and looks like paper numbers that we're going to show like we can do more than mastering the MJDs, and they did master it. First they mastered MJDs, now they mastered armor control with great screening and great ECM. And with that, let's send it back to the studio.
Hello everyone and welcome back. Another crushing victory there for Paper Numbers. Their fourth 100-0 victory in a row, and it seems like the glass slipper does indeed fit on this Cinderella run, as they are taking it through to the grand finals, where they will be facing the as of yet undefeated Only Needs 2 comps to see who's going to be walking away with the grand prize of over 130 billion ISK, and of course the absolute priceless prize of being the Anger Games 5 champions. Radikos, one of the things that I noticed in that match that was super interesting was the way the Rook distributed his jams. Not only was he, kind of splitting them around, switching them around between different targets to disrupt the game plan of Pashola Capital Supremacy, he was also at one point using his Amar jams to jam out the healer's infiltrators. Can you go into a little bit about how that works and why that might be effective?
Hate to tell you, Radikos has fallen victim to the Mutarator virus, and he has not unmuted himself. So he put his glasses on, he's on camera, and he hasn't said a word.
Okay, Wingnut, can you take me through a little bit about how that would work then instead?
I wasn't. No, I'm here. Sorry, I just had it muted. I heard what you said because I had the stream going. I'm sorry. The Rook had just overpowered everything in that match. It's stopping everything from doing what it wanted to do, and I didn't really see. I was hoping, because I was rooting for Perjola and Skykiller, but that Rook spelled the demise of that whole match for them.
Yeah, and what about, you saw some cool, very, very interesting ship choices there, Wingnut. What did you think of that Shield Typhoon fleet issue? Not something we see brought an awful lot, except in armor comps. Can you just go into a little bit about what it does? Or what they were trying to do?
One of the joys about going Shield is that you can bring more DPS mods in your lows. So I guess the idea is to bring as much DPS as humanly possible, and also maybe narrow fit it, make it fast, yada yada yada. I don't like the choice, but I would rather know why they did it before I start shit talking them on it. I don't know why they did that particular ship there, but what do you do? They brought a Shield Typhoon fleet maybe to try and avoid a ban, and just it didn't do much. It didn't have damage to breakthrough targets, and that Rook constantly controlling, just what can you do? You put drones and pray.
You can't do anything.
Yeah, normally one of the disadvantages that we see with these ECM comps is that you have to sacrifice one of your tackle ships to fill that role, and that's so much more impactful in the 7v7 format. Radikos, can you go in, as a captain, can you go into a little bit more about how tackle is assigned and how you sort of play that opening dance for positioning?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the match, you're looking at what you need to screen off for the smaller targets. See if you can make it play, have their tackle go after the Logi as well, see if that's something that you can make a play for. As the match evolves, it becomes what is in the most danger and what needs, is on both sides of the field, what needs to be screened and what needs to be tackled. You can get, like in that last match, getting all on the Rook, I think was the best thing that they could have done. But I don't think they got screened so well, and the Rook could do so much that it really just stopped any kind of play that they were going to try to go for.
Now, I know we've got a show match and a break before we do end up with that best of 5. We've got to give the team of Paper Numbers just a chance to recover from that amazing game. I want to get you guys' predictions for that series. Who do you think from everything you've seen so far today, is going to come out the victor in that best of 5 series? Wingnut, you go first.
Paper numbers, my man. Come on, is there even a choice? They're the Cinderella story. They're the MJD Kings. They're the ones going 104 times in a row. If they don't win this, I'm gonna riot in here. I'm gonna riot. They gotta win this. They have to. It's required.
And what about you, Radikos? Do you think the tournament experience of local is primary, or only need 2 comps as they are titled in this format is going to win? Or do you agree with Wingnut and that paper numbers is going to take it home?
I mean, it is a Cinderella story with paper numbers, but you're going up against one of the best Logi pilots in all of EVE, and not even just in tournaments in TIN. So you're going to be fighting against someone who will be dedicated to saving his team. You have a captain, Demescadesh, that is a laser championing hero. They just have so many good, experienced guys on that team that I think they'll win based on that alone. But looking at these bands, I wouldn't expect in the first match to see a Belgorn. So we'll see if they're ready for that.
Yeah, something interesting to cover in this best of 5 is that we will be using a modified conquest ban system. So if you win a match, you cannot use any of those ships in the next game. This means that you will need to have a lot of comps up your sleeve and a lot of strategies to play with. You will then, if you lose, regain access to those ships though. So you can potentially win 2 of the 3 matches with 1 composition, but you will need to win with at least 2 different comps to take home the trophy. Anyway, that's enough of that game. We will look forward to talking about that a bit more at 1850 when we come back from our short little break and talk about that. But let's get ready to talk about the show matches between Ultramarine and Tournament Team that will be coming up shortly. Wingnut, you've participated in a couple of these show matches. Can you tell me a little bit about how seriously the teams are taking it? As I know there's been some questions about that in the chat.
Risk of an aggravating Radikos here. I don't think anyone's taking it seriously in the slightest. It's just good fun, mate. Trying silly stuff. Just bring out comps we know work. Have a good laugh with it. And, laugh a lot. We were chaos in the first match. It was great. But hey, we won that one. So it is honestly probably the best amount of fun for it, because it is just, there is an element of insanity that comes out of those command destroyers, which just removes the whole like this is a serious game. Just you go screw it. Let's just have fun. Let's just go for it. Why not?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of fun, and I'm really happy that they threw it in. Like I said yesterday, because it's something just fun for the audience to watch. Especially when you have teams like Volt A and Volt B just bringing ECM and making it absolutely boring to watch for 10 minutes. So it's nice to see a little mix in there, and yeah, just have a good time with it. We kept it fun for this last one that we went against Tournament Team, but the first one we definitely took it very seriously because we wanted to stomp Goons to the ground, but they just did it themselves for us, so that was pretty sweet. But yeah, I mean, it's fun. Yeah, and that's the whole point of it. I mean, that's all why we're all here, right?
Absolutely, and we have some really cool and another unique flagship getting brought here, with Tournament Team declaring the Leshak as their flagship. What do you think about that, Radikos? What does that open up for you as a flagship option?
Well, they have many things they could pull with it. I'm expecting to see a couple Blackbirds here, possibly. But with Tournament Team bringing Leshak, but they could also bring, they might bring Leshak Armageddon. That'd be kind of be interesting to see. Yeah, just having the flag Leshak, it just makes it so strong, and just like the Belgorn is, very very strong flagship, can be a very strong flagship with all the bonuses that the Leshak gets, and the tank alone will be amazing to watch. If it gets any pressure on it, it'd be really nice to see what it'll take to closely break it, or at least push it to that limit.
Meanwhile, Ultramarines have brought the Nightmare again as their flagship. Wingnut, do you think Melinda's going to avoid getting MJD'd out of the arena this time?
He avoided it last time. He just didn't avoid the MJD. I will see. I would honestly love if he didn't bring it just to meme us all, but I suspect he's gonna do pretty well. He'll have his friends nearby that are permanently ready to scram for him. So because that seemed to work last time again. So I don't know, 50-50 chance whether he gets pushed or not.
We'll see if they get tunneled and go chase after after the Boucher again. I mean, Yoyaz is a sneaky target, and you want to take him out because he is threatening. But maybe they'll figure out not to tunnel on him.
You the Benny Hill, mate. Just chase after
Yeah.
that sneaky Bifrost.
Yeah, as if the tackle war wasn't as important enough already in a 7v7 format where you have so few people to potentially spend on it. Now you have to worry about an untackled tackle ship potentially killing your battleship. What a kind of thing to work with. Can you tell me a little bit about how messy the comms were? We actually originally hoped to stream the comms live to the broadcast so that people could get an impression of how much communication goes on Radikos, but what is it like when you're playing in a match? How much has to be communicated, and that sort of, just give us an insight into that side of things.
Well, if it's a show match, I was screaming and yelling at people, and it would have been hilarious for you guys to listen to. But in a serious match, the only thing that we care about is the communication happening and who's getting tackled, who's getting screened, who's being jammed, who needs rep bots, who's out of position. Those are all key elements in a match in which, so far this year and in AT, basically any team that I've been on, when it's a real match, it's serious and there's no bull crapping around. You really gotta clamp down on that crap. But the last match, I was just willy-nilly yelling at everybody. It was kind of fun. People were like, "I'm gonna go for the boundary." People are like, "No, for the boundary." I'm like, "Go for the boundary."
Of course, you would know about the boundary, being the boundary experts captain in the normal AT.
That's right. Yep.
Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the bands here. We've got Balgorn, Armageddon, Zarmaz banned by Ultramarines, and Scorpion, Osprey Navy, Stork banned by Tournament Team. Any thoughts on those bands, Radikos?
Yeah, well, so Armageddon, Bal, Zarm. Oh, they are bringing. Oh, this is the show. Okay. Yeah, they don't want to see power. They want to see newts from Tournament Team. So that's good for them. Tournament Team doesn't want to see jams. I don't know if we'll see that with a Nightmare as a flag. Osprey Navy issue, Stork. Not really sure why they are banning Osprey Navy issue, but maybe it's just a ban they decided to throw in there. I guess it was used with the Nightmare match, so they could be bringing that again. But I mean, they have the option to bring Aguila or the option to bring the Orthrus. So interesting ban there.
What about you, Wingnut? Any thoughts?
I don't know why they banned Osprey Navy. There's probably a reason. It may even just be for fun. They're not making a word out of the letters of the name. I mean, it's like Scorpion, Osprey, Stork, SOS. I don't know. I'm not sure the Osprey Navy banned. The rest of it makes sense. It's exactly what you expect. The Nightmare doesn't want to see Newt, so I would love to see, as a surprise ship, full Newt Dominix, just to surprise that Nightmare. I'm hoping for it.
All right, well, we have the teams on the grid, and it seems like someone has gone no fun indeed, but let's get the predictions in. Radikos, who do you think is going to win this one?
Tournament Team all the way. I think they're going to run with it.
Wingnut?
I want to believe, but yeah, it's Tournament Team. I mean, it's Tournament Team. What can we say?
Oh, I've got to say Ultramarines. They, like I said, they have gone absolutely no fun in this. But let's hand it over to... who actually do we have commentating this match? I believe Mizir and Wingnut. We'll see who it is. We'll hand it over to the commentators, and we'll get this match underway.
Hello, everybody. My name is Varian Stoneshard, joined by Wingnut for the last show match of today. Let's see if Melinda can avoid getting boundaried this time, or MGD'd at least. We have our Ultramarines bringing a Nightmare Osprey double Gila instead of double Commander or Heavy Interdictor this time. A Orpheus, a Bifrost, and a Jackdaw. Wingnut, what do Tournament Team have?
That was Tournament Team, I believe.
No, that's Ultramarines.
Oh, no, God, I'm so out of it right now.
I got
Sorry,
my colors right this time. I got my colors right.
Tournament team has Leshak, Guardian, Sacrilege, Pontifex, Vengeance, Vexa, Mauler. There is a single Command Destroyer in there on each team.
Yeah,
I honestly wonder if
interesting.
we're gonna see
No
them
heavy
pick
interdictors for defense this time, so it's going to be very interesting if maybe the Orphis tries to fill a similar role this time.
I don't know. It's a potential option. It's always hard to tell with this because now that we've got these Command Destroyers, the matches become a lot more chaotic and people have an entirely different meta. But the
Yeah,
match is underway. Gila
immediate
drones are being
damage
sent
on the
across the-
Guardian.
Yeah, watch these.
No.
Wait for it. About 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Drones on the Gila and Guardian. Sorry, and you can see immediately he starts actually losing armor. Of course, he reps it up, but you can see the moment the Gila drones
He's
hit,
doing all right for now. His tank is still quite steady.
Oh yeah, he has a lot of rep drones on him, so he shouldn't die particularly fast. But you can see the moment those drones hit. It's not enough to break him, but you can see it. Now I'm just keeping an eye. I see the Pontifex is sitting on a jump beacon. Is he gonna try and do a double jump? I'm
Their
really hoping he
entire
does.
team is approaching the MGD
Oh
field.
no! Oh no!
So they might be going for an interesting strategy here, but they do have to do it quick. Jonathan is now taking a ton of damage. His Guardian is no longer holding.
Yep. I'm just hoping let the games begin. But indeed, he is getting really hurt. He's got a lot of Logi drones on him, but he's also got a lot of DPS drones as well, so he's hurting bad.
Something that's very important to notice, using an MGD balloons your signature radius an immense amount, and there
What
goes a
doesn't matter.
Guardian.
It
And
did not matter.
meanwhile,
And
they
Boosh
haven't
already got
done
on.
anything in return.
Boosh is on. Here they go. They're all jumping. Well, some of them are at least. The Leshak still is in position, but the Pontifex is going. The
Okay,
Maul is
yep,
going.
yep.
Sacrilege is going.
Oh, a
What is
couple of
that
them have
hunting near?
landed right on the Osprey of Erd.
Wow! Literally on the Osprey. Bravo. Even in scram range, Sacrilege holds the Osprey immediately. Bravo on that one. They might be able to go for the Logi trade here, even though they are losing ships. Pontifex is just being deleted. They do not want
Yeah.
any of those shenanigans on this grid.
That Osprey is not long for this world, but they're trading a whole lot for it. At this point, they've already lost their Guardian, lost frigates, or Pontifex, so that is a lot of points just to play for one T1 Logi.
Yep. Unfortunately, Ultramarines is going to, unfortunately, maybe rip them apart. But I'm still watching this Bifrost because I want to see another Boosh. I want to see the Paradigm just send someone to the Shadow Realm. We see the Vengeance moment being deleted. The Osprey is about to die too, so they will get the Logi trade, but it's a bit late. Here we go.
Oh,
Bifrost
and
going for the
attempt is
Boosh.
being made on the Leshak. He's
Gone!
got
He's
it
out of here!
and gone! Oh,
He's out!
finally,
that
Melinda's team manages to boost somebody else instead of getting boosted themselves. And
Yep,
with
and here we
that
go.
goes the flagship Leshak.
And he's out of here. That's a game. Unfortunately, that was the core of their fleet, removed in a single Boosh. Vexa goes down. There's a Mauler and a Sacrilege left. These Mauler hulls are sexy, but they do nothing in this scenario.
Yeah,
But
at this point, if they manage to get tackle on something, they might still take like a squishy target down, but realistically, that's sadly game
that's
over.
Not gonna happen, champ.
And in local, we already have the request, let me jump, let me jump. Now, something that's very worth mentioning is these matches do have some pretty awesome prices. I believe the winning team gets a nice 2,500 Plex, and that MGD actually might have earned them another 500 Plex, if I'm not mistaken. Leshak is worth more points than the Nightmare that got MGD'd out of the arena yesterday. So
True.
that might earn him a couple of extra points, but with Ultramarines taking a win, we'll have the desk talk about that one.
Welcome back to the studio, and I am joined by Fear and Mizir, two veteran commentators, and that was an amazing match to watch, I've got to say. What was your favorite highlight from that, Fear?
There can only be one highlight. I mean, the Boosh for Glory taking that Leshak out of the arena. The second time we've seen that happen throughout these show matches where we see a successful Boosh actually end up in a kill of a flagship. So really well done there. Definitely the highlight of the match for me.
I've got to ask, Mizir, do you hope to see the micro jump drive field generators be allowed in future tournament play, even if it's not in the AT?
I'm a bit torn about it. I guess a really fun chaos element, but it's it might like make things a little bit too chaotic for like a tournament like the AT, where I would rather see it as a showcase of good piloting and tactics.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just shows the limits of what's possible in EVE Online. It is so fun to see the high skill cap of the game get brought to bear, even if it's potentially not balanced for tournament play in the future. Anyway, with that, we are going to head towards a break here. We will be back at around 1850. Do you guys have any final comments or things that you're looking forward to as we head towards that best of 5 grand finals?
I mean, it's going to be like two teams that haven't been in the finals before, and they have been like having like a different approach to things. So I am really looking forward to see what they're going to bring and what kind of matches we're going to see in the finals. And no matter who wins, we're going to have like, some new victors and going to celebrate that some great people who going to take a gold medal in a tournament.
Yeah, and Fear, is there anything you're hoping to see as we head into that? I know personally, I'm hoping for some more of those Rifers and MJD plays to get brought out of the bag.
Well, the Rifus and MJD plays for sure, but I just want to I just want to see paper numbers, perhaps bring something a little bit different. Same thing with only need 2 comps, right? It's a BO5. That changes the dynamics of how you're actually going to want to play, especially with these conquest bans coming through, right? So we're going to see some different comps. We'll see if, paper numbers continues with this kind of like armor control style that we've seen from them, or only need 2 comps with that style, or if paper numbers is going to bring something a little bit different to what we've already seen from them throughout the tournament.
Yeah, well, to keep you guys entertained during the break, we're going to be having a poll around the best team name. As you might have heard, with 48 teams entered this tournament, and whilst only 2 remain, you get a chance to get one final reward out to one of those 46 eliminated teams by voting for their name if you think it was either the funniest, the smartest, or just the one you agree with the most. Anyway, we will see you all in 20 minutes at 1850 Eve time. That's all from Meow, and I'll see you later. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're about to watch the best of 5 grand finals take place between Only Need 2 comps, better known as Local is Primary, which is the name they compete under for the Alliance tournament, going up against Paper Numbers, who are effectively the German part of Literally Triggered from the last Alliance tournament, who recently actually split off from that alliance and now live in Wormhole Space. And we have seen some amazing matches so far, and I am sure we're about to watch some even better ones take place, as both of these teams have absolutely everything on the line, with a grand prize of 130 billion ISK at stake. And these two teams have had an amazing run to the finals. In fact, completely opposite. Only Need 2 comps have not lost a single game in their run to this position, cruising their way through the winner's bracket all the way here. Whereas Paper Numbers, they lost in the very first game they played against Volt P and then powered their way through the loser's bracket to where they are now, defeating team after team after team, taking revenge on Volt B and then finishing it up against Volt A. And they're currently on a streak of 100-0 victories, absolute dominance. But the games are changed now, the brackets are reset, and whoever wins here walks away the absolute victor. And there are some really unique rules at play in this best of 5, as it's going to be played under rolling conquest bans. So if you win a game with a composition, you cannot bring any of those ships for the next game you play in the series. That ban will then be lifted in the next game, but if you then, for example, win that next game with a comp, those ships cannot be used as well in the next game, whilst the previous ones become unlocked again. Mizir, what are you looking forward to seeing in this? And do you think that Paper Numbers are gonna have the depth of theory crafting to really make this happen?
I mean, they have shown that they can take some like standard armor control setups and then execute them really well, like both assigning the jammers or the neutralizers, and at the same time also being good at screening. So they're definitely a team that can do excellent piloting, and they're also having a fairly good understanding of the meta. Okay, it's still like if I'd had to put my money on someone, I would still think it would only need 2 comps, but they definitely need to work for it because Paper Numbers have shown that they know what they're doing. They know the numbers on the Fairycraft papers.
Indeed, they are an absolutely amazing story. We've not seen quite a Cinderella run like this probably since Laserhawks. Fear, on the other side, Only Need 2 comps. As I said, they've been dominant up until now, but they've also yet to win a match without losing a ship. What can you tell us about that? Obviously, the only points that matter are the ones that put you ahead, but what does this kind of show us about Only Need 2 comps' playstyle?
Oh, I mean, it's you can't really extrapolate a whole lot from 100 to 0 versus, like 100 to like 30 wins and stuff like that, because what it boils down to is a difference in strategy, and not so much pilot skill. One thing Only Need 2 comps has been doing a lot of is they've been willing to trade some of their lower value targets for higher value targets from the enemy side, whereas that really hasn't been happening all that much from Paper Numbers. They've typically been coming off the back on the start of a match and trying to wait for opponents to overextend and then pounce on them instead of going for these kind of trade style openings to the match. So that's kind of where I'm seeing the difference between the two teams, is just one's more willing to go for trades and the other's more willing to look for overextensions. And that kind of like see what happens and then punish style can work, but at the same time, sometimes you can get baited by that, and that's not something that's really happened with Paper Numbers, but it could happen, and that's something you got to watch out for when you're up against a team that does go for these early trades.
Yeah, and I have to say that chat seems incredibly split with this. We're sitting at perfect 50-50 right now, only 5,000 points difference between them. This is going to be an amazing match, and I can't wait to see what happens. But we do, in fact, have the bans coming across the tape now. Only Need 2 comps have banned the Rook, Blackbird, and Leshak. Clearly very worried about ECM. What does that kind of show to you, Mizir? Do you think that this is something that Paper Numbers have leaned a bit too much on in their previous matches? Or is it something that Only Need 2 comps just don't want to see for some other reason?
Well, Rook and Blackbird are certainly like key ships for armor ECM comps, and with the Leshak getting banned as well, it's another ship been used a lot in these again armor control comps. So they're trying to weaken these setups from Paper Numbers. So they're going to have to think a bit differently than they've been doing in most of their matches. But one thing to notice is that Only Need 2 comps are still leaving the Balgon and the Armageddon open, and we have seen that Paper Numbers can absolutely master these ships with the MJD plays. So Only Need 2 comps need to keep that in mind, that they need to be prepared to scram these ships so they can counter it. And also healers are left open, so we might actually see one or two of the teams bringing shield comps, but only time will tell.
Yeah, Paper Numbers having banned out the Cursed Scorpion and Zarmazd, as you say, leaving the Healer unbanned, which is the only ship that we've actually seen be brought on average more than once when it's left unbanned, which is something that's allowed within this rule set. Could you just go over a little bit about why the Healer is so powerful here, Fear, and why we might see it used?
I mean, what it boils down to is damage per points, including relative tank. It's just much like other Garista ships, like the Worm, who's very good, kind of in that solo novice plex PvP type scenario, or things like the Rattlesnake, which is so good in tournament play that it has an increased point cost compared to other battleships in the AT. This is one of those cases where medium drones with a lot of HP are really hard to defang, so a whole chunk of the damage isn't going to be countered by smart bombs. You have the ability to go rapid lights, or if you're going a little bit high fear, something like heavy assault missiles, or if you want to play a little bit more kites, you have the option to go HMLs, but most of the time we see rapid lights on these Gilas, right? So it brings options, it brings a lot of DPS for the point value, and on top of that, they're relatively fast and relatively tanky cruisers. Being Garistas, pirate cruisers, they have kind of just an inherent amount of EHP that's very strong, and that's why we see, these particular ships being used a lot of times in a passive tank setup on TQ for abyssal running or anything like that, right? They just have a lot of EHP. They have the ability to project very well, and thus they kind of become the ultimate cruiser because they can brawl, they can kite, are super versatile, and they can fit into a lot of different versions of the shield comp.
Yeah, and as we see the teams here actually taking place on the grid before their allotted time slots, I'd just like to spend a moment here to thank the people who are making these matches happen behind the scenes. The referees of Zealous, Sothrasil, Rain, Tyler, and Bard Ghost, who've been doing amazing work keeping everything running smoothly and the action constant to you guys in the stream. Anyway, as the match time starts, let's hand it over to Chair and Wingnut in the arena to go over this match.
Welcome to the first match of the finals, and so everyone's surprised, there is not a single Gila on field. There's not even any control on field. We have a match we were not expecting to see, and I am loving it. Chair, my man, get us started, Ben. What do these guys got?
All right, so Paper Numbers is bringing their double Armageddon comp for the Neros, Vexor Navy issue, Draugr, Mauler, and Malediction. And then less than 2 comps is bringing Hyperion, Drekavac, Rodiva, Vedmak, double Og Navy, and a Draugr.
Yeah, so either by intention or by accident, they have actually got the perfect counter here in a double Geddon comp against this full Tragovian rush with a Hyperion because blasters are great. But the interesting thing to note is that the 2 Armageddon did not warp in together. They warped in at different ranges. So we might see a double MJD play to try and get between this opposing team. Yep. But we're going to have to wait and see because the match is now underway. So this thing's going to be very interesting. You see the Trigger ships running for their lives immediately.
and they're already shooting a Mauler, which I don't know what the choice with shooting a Mauler is. Again, we've seen how this goes before. The CEO of CEOs is usually pretty good about knowing how to tank with his Mauler. It's also T1 Logi with the Rediva versus T2 Logi with a Oneros.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing any MGDs as far as I'm aware yet. Neither Rafson or Maddox have moved, so they're going to play it smart and play it slow, stay with their team, provide those long-range nukes the Armageddon's great for. I also believe that one of the Armageddons has one less missile than the other, so which means it has potentially a utility smart bomb or an extra nuke. So that could be 5 nukes, could be 4 nukes and a smart bomb. That honestly could change this match as well, all on its own. But damage is being spread over at the moment. See the Drekavac now taking some damage for only these 2 comps. I want to see if the Rediva can hold him.
Paper Numbers is playing this very, very slowly, very calculated. Just waiting for less than 2 comps to just kind of make a mistake and so they can jump on it. Just really feeling them out. And they're going back onto the Mauler again. It's the only thing really taking damage.
Yep, exactly that. They're going for that Mauler again. I wonder if this Mauler, I need to double check. It is actually a gun Mauler, so it is not the usual full nuke that we see. So he's actually projecting out some damage with his lasers, which can be quite annoying for the opposing team.
It is also
So at least
quite hard for the less than 2 comps to really apply their damage to more than one thing because they have a lot of spool ships, as well as the Hyperion does not apply its damage from range very well either. It's shooting null right now, which is not super effective.
At the moment, seeing the Org Navies and I think the Drek trying to come around the side of the Paper Numbers team at the moment, trying to get in position to maybe snag the Logi or snag a weaker back ship. But at the moment, it looks like they're being pretty well screened off by a Mauler and a Vexor Navy, who is currently holding them off. Keeping an eye out for things, see if I can see an MJD happen, because we know these guys love their MJDs.
Yep, and they less than 2 comps keeps trying on this Draugr and Mauler, just kind of switching through. The Malediction hasn't really been touched at all. They're just trying to poke holes into Paper Numbers comp.
And look at the hype of Grunt Kato. Is actually pretty much within scram range now, I believe, of one of these Armageddon. So he's going in potentially to go try and take down an Armageddon. That is a very tough call for a blasted ship to try and do, especially with the heavy nuke pressure these Geddons can bring.
Yep.
We see damage actually on the Vexor Navy is they're hurting quite badly.
Yeah, he's grabbed the Drekavac, so they're just going full brawl onto the Drekavac, going to try and break it through the Rediva reps, which is going to be quite hard because when it spools up, it does have a high rep amount compared to other T1 logistics.
Exactly that. Luckily for them, they do have double rapid heavy Armageddon, so they have the potential to burst through it before the Rediva saves them. But if they fail it, that just almost means GG for their composition, as this Vexor Navy is going to die. He's repping as hard as he can, but he will die very soon. So they need to get this Drekavac as a response, otherwise this is all going to go downhill very quickly.
Yep, and he's going to drop shortly here, and if they don't trade out this Drekavac fast enough, it's just going to crumble from here. The Neros really is struggling to keep things up under this immense amount of DPS. The Hyperion.
This is the make or break moment right here. If that Drek dies, they actually have the tank to survive. But if that Drek does not die, their team will not be able to hold against the DPS, as shown by the fact that they're losing ships. So it has to go, and both teams know this. And this is an all-in moment from both teams here.
Yep, and the Hyperion is splitting damage onto one of the Armageddons, really making the Oneros work for it, as he just splits his reps between the Draugr and the Armageddon, and now he's taking damage as well because he's caught by
yep. And the Drek survived. They're on reload. Drek has survived, I'm pretty sure. So that is not good for this team now. They could not break this Drekavac, which means the damage is going to keep ramping on their team. As their Geddon is now going into half armor and continuing down. This is just not looking good at all.
Yep, and the Newts really didn't come into any play right now because they're on the Hyperion, but with 3200s or even like lower amounts of cap charges, he can just keep his guns running constantly, and that's all he needs to do. That's his only job right now.
For the MJD play? Well, guess what? Maddox this time, instead of Riferson, has gone for the MJD towards the Rediva to remove those nukes. So remove those reps, sorry. So that could be there potentially another chance at killing this Drek, but they have to do their absolute best. Parkbank is currently being chased by an Augur Navy. God, I can never get that name right. He is trying his best, but he's going real low. He's going to die really soon. And hopefully he can buy as much time as he can, but I don't think it's going to be enough.
No, he's piloting his heart out, and he's really trying to get away from everything. There's a swarm of just bots on top of him as well. Not even rep bots, just DPS bots.
I think unfortunately the problem here is that they pretty much got their again onto this Rediva, or at least close enough to. No, never mind. He's gone. No, he's on him. He's gone. they got their newts onto the Redeemer, but it's too late as they've already lost the chance to kill the Drekavac. So it's too little, too late now. They're going to get pulled apart, and this is so unfortunate for Paper Numbers, who've had a dominating run recently with a lot of awesome matches. But actually, Rafe jumped out. Rafe MJD'd out. Like I say this, and he immediately just shows what I said. The MJD plays he does is so good, but they just I don't think gonna matter unless they can kill this Drek in time and maybe try and rush him down. But I just don't see it working.
Yeah, they just really couldn't get the two Armageddons into a position where they needed to be. Hyperion really throwing a wrench into things, as well as just there's so much DPS on field. Like there's only one ship that doesn't do DPS on the only bring 2 comp side.
Yeah, they might actually get Damascus still. He is slowly losing, but unfortunately, their entire comp is gone. It's too late, unfortunately.
Yep.
Ah, man, damn it! No.
It's very, very well played from only bring 2 comps, but there's still more matches to come. They have to rapidly make a whole new comp and decide what they're going to bring. Only bring 2 comps cannot bring the same comp again, so they're going to have to bring something totally new, and they also have to do bans within a certain allotted time.
And the worst thing as well for Paper Numbers is effectively they kind of had the hard counter comp here. They had the full newts to try and ruin these what's it called, newt weak ships, and they unfortunately just could not come away with it. That honestly to me would be a morale breaker, but I bet these guys have made a sterner stuff and will come back with another interesting and powerful comp to try and win this. As Damascus is now fully held, unfortunately. They couldn't even get the honor kill.
Oh,
yeah,
Kickat's in structure. Might be able to get a little snipe.
Maybe
across the field.
There are some drones in them, I believe, so there's a chance. No, there's no drones in them. I'm an idiot. No, there is drones in them. I was right.
I think they're dead drones. I don't think they
No, they're live drones. They're berserkers that are currently trying to kill the Redeemer.
Yes.
He's still trying.
So, I feel like Paper Numbers really needed to be more aggressive, and they took a little bit too much time just kind of sitting back and feeling things out. And by then, they were just getting pressured already, and the Vexor having to lunge for the Drekavac just kind of put it in a bad spot because it's probably the squishiest member on the team, excluding the Draugr.
Yeah, I also think they probably bit off a bit more than they could chew going for the Drekavac first, unfortunately. They need to chew through DPS fast, and they picked probably the I wouldn't say best tank with DPS. The Hyperion is better, but one of the ones they wanted to kill. But Geddon goes down. That is a clean sweep for only 2 comps, and we're going to match 2 and to the commentary desk.
Hello everyone and welcome back. That was a really, really interesting armor control mirror to watch there. Both teams trying to take compositions that would allow them to make more decisions than the other team. And usually that goes the way of the team that brings the most control. But we saw only need 2 comps being able to work around that Redeever and the Hyperion effectively with that little bit more damage-centric comp and make things work, taking it 100-0 as well. In a very, very dominant opening display. Mizir, what can you tell me about the Rodiva and why was that so effective in that match?
I mean, first, you mentioned that they didn't have much control, but one thing people need to keep in mind is that the positioning itself is important for control, and that Rodiva pilot, Tim, is a former copmate of mine as well, is an excellent pilot both for nanoing and also for tournament logic. One of the top tier pilots, and he showed it here that he was always staying in a good position. It was hard for the Paper Number team to have a run at him, and his bodies did amazing screening for him, so he could really be in a comfortable position and do his repair work and just spool up that repair on the Drekavac, and eventually allowing that Drekavac to survive despite Paper Numbers doing so much in trying to harass him and applying damage to the Drek, and he still kept enough reps on that Drek to keep him alive, and that is a really good play from the only need 2 comps team.
Yeah, meanwhile, we saw only need 2 comps bringing some really cool ships as well. The Hyperion, the Drekavac, these are ships that pretty much only they have been using later on in this tournament. Can you give us some insight into why these ships were so potent in that game, Fear?
I mean, it just comes down to overwhelming DPS numbers, right? When you're up against a dual Geddon comp, they have a drone bonus, but typically when you have dual Geddons, you're going to put rapid heavies on them just to have a little bit of extra damage, right? The issue is when you have rapid heavies on your Geddons, you only have 4 newts between the two of them, and that really hinders the amount of newt power you actually have compared to if you went with something like a full newt Geddon plus another battleship, right, where a full newt Geddon would have 5 heavy newts on it. So because of that, and because of the fact that they had so many different ships that they had to actually shut off, they weren't actually able to effectively shut down the DPS of any given ship enough throughout that match. One thing that Paper Numbers has been really good about, and I mentioned, is punishing positioning mistakes, and only new 2 comps didn't really make any that fight. And when you have Armageddons, which are actually very good at punishing positioning mistakes, because someone's out of position, you can shut off their MWDs pretty quickly and then catch back up to them, because the newts basically act as a tackle mod for you, or as a screening mod for your Logi. This time around, they just couldn't deal with what was going on with this, Hyperion, the Strekovac, the Svedmak, all just plowing in all this damage all the time. They couldn't split up this DPS. And when you have these high DPS ships and these high DPS for per point ships, it becomes very difficult very quickly to have any effect with these Armageddons.
So I'd like to point out one key thing about that Hyperion was that they held him back for a long time in the match. It was mainly the cruisers that burned in to make the offensive play. Meanwhile, the Hyperion stayed a little bit back, and that made it risky for these Geddons to jump in. And like Fear said, they only had 2 heavy neutralizers, so they can't really pressure the capacitor of the Hyperion that much. And it made the Hyperion such a dangerous ship for these Geddons, because if they did a micro jump drag play, or they just burned in, then he would get on top of them and just hammer them with that blaster DPS. And we saw once the Ryfen got caught by him, he was taking a big amount of damage and had to jump out eventually. And that just put a big wrench into the Paper Numbers plan, because that Hyperion was posing that threat to these Armageddons.
Yeah, now this does leave taking the victory here by only need 2 comps does leave us in a position where they are missing a few ships now that they've brought for quite a lot of their matches coming up, with the Hyperion, Drekvac, Rediva, Vedmak, Orc Navy, and Draugr all completely banned out of them, along with the regular bans that we'll go through in a little bit taken off the field. And then on top of that, they've only got 20 minutes after the match is completed to prepare for things. What kind of pressure does that put you under, Fear? How hard is it to theory craft in such a limited window?
Typically, you have a couple of comps that you think about going into when you think you're about to make it into one of these final matches. So you kind of already have an idea of what you're going to bring if you win with one of your comps. Right, depending on the bans. And looking at the bans as they've come in, is Armageddon Leshak Rook from only need 2 comps, and Curse Scorpion Zarm from Paper Numbers. Once again, the Gila's up, and I do think that if there is a time to bring a Barghest comp, this is where you do it from only need 2 comps. Paper Numbers are probably going to be aware of that and think, well, what do we actually do if they decide to bring a shield comp, because they banned out a lot of these armor powerhouses. And the reason I think about the shield comp here is because the Draugr is out of the picture, and the Draugr is just such a powerful armor ship. Even though it doesn't give armor links, it kind of is one of these linchpin ships that we see in a lot of these armor comps. It's the second most present ship in the tournament. So my thought is, okay, so what do we do with the Draugrs gone? Well, we can either do an armor comp without a Draugr, or we can do a shield comp, and I think that's kind of where only need 2 comps is probably looking, and where Paper Numbers is probably trying to force them into for this next match.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was really good. I guess the question now is, what do you think Paper Numbers is going to try and do to recover from this Mizir? They have now a 0-1 deficit to make up for. They still have all of their options left on the table, but they've taken something that I think they believe is one of their strongest comps out to play, and they lost with it. What does that kind of do to your morale, Mizir?
I mean, it can be really hard to lose the first match in like one of these best of the best of 3 or best of 5 in this case. But they do have the conquest bands to aid them, and like Fear was mentioning already, they can try and make it hard for the only two comps team, as the conquest bands will make it harder for them to come with these armor setups, and now paper numbers need to really utilize on that, either weaken other armor setups so much that they're going to force only two comps into a shield setup, or simply just try and outplay them through the uses of armor comps, now that the only two comps cannot bring like some of their key ships for the next match.
Yeah, it actually looks like we've finally got the bands in here, and it looks like they're almost the exact same as before. We've got Armageddon, Leshak, Rook banned by only need two comps, just taking that dual Armageddon core off the field for now, that we saw in that last game, but pretty much the same as their previous bans, whilst paper numbers are sticking with Curse, Scorpion, Zarmazd. So it doesn't seem like either team is really adjusting yet. Who do you think that gives the advantage to, Fear, here?
Well, I think the Geddon Leshak bans are very important up against paper numbers. It does mean that with only the Rook band and the Scorpion, they can decide to bring an ECM comp potentially, if they think that's going to work. But generally speaking, the Conquest bands benefits the team that lost in the previous match. That's why we have Conquest bans in the first place. So I think paper numbers are probably going to come out a little bit ahead on these bans, but only slightly, really.
Yeah, now we've talked a lot about kind of the upper end of things. We've talked about the big battleships, the big utility plays, but I want to reel things back and talk just a little bit more about that tackle game, because it was so crucial in that match. If that Vex and Aviation had been able to survive for just a little bit longer, the Drekvac probably would have fallen. So can you go, Mizir, can you go over just a little bit of the power of these Orga Navies, the Vedmak, these sorts of tanky armor cruisers that people are bringing to the field, and why we're seeing so much of them in the tournament?
I mean, in this format, they are really good value for the money. And one key thing is, like, when you're bringing cruisers in a tournament setup, you need to make sure that it can tank. Like a Tech 1 resist on a cruiser is going to be a really squishy ship, so often people have been bringing Hex or other Tech 2 cruisers. But these armor faction cruisers, they do have either like they have the bonus for armor HP, like the ANIs, or like the Vexers, the Vetmax, they just have like a good base armor HP and the 6 low slots. So it's a case of these ships being able to tank well enough despite being with the Tech 1 resist, and that just means you get so much out of value compared to hacks that are much more expensive, but don't necessarily bring that much else. Like the Orga Navy issues both have a good amount of DPS. They are really fast, even for armor cruisers, and they got 2 utility high slots. And you can fit the Nosratus in those to make them like almost immune for neutralizers. And likewise for the Vetmak, is having same like good speed, good tank, spooling DPS, and the utility high slots. So it's a lot of value for armor comps to have these ships that they're good all-round ships. Don't really have that much glaring weaknesses, and like they had those 3 on top of having both a Hyperion and the Drekavac, so they had like a really strong amount of DPS ships they could just throw at whatever paper numbers were sending them.
Yeah, something I'm noticing though as we go into this final match, this second match in the series of potentially 5 of them, is that the Blackbird has been left open, and this is it's only the 9th most banned ship in this tournament so far, but it's something that has become practically permaban in this last weekend. We haven't seen it slip through the ban phase without being picked since June the 5th, I'm fairly sure. So what is the power of the Blackbird in this tournament, and why are we seeing it be so powerful, especially amongst these high-tier teams, Fear?
It's a cheap ECM ship. Is basically what it boils down to, right? So something that we saw a lot of times earlier in the tournament, and something that I think Volt A was doing quite a bit of, is kind of these widow-centric comps, right? Where you kind of had this big taunt, and then you take a Blackbird with it. To basically trade your jams. Now, the advantage of a Blackbird is that you can bring 2 of them for relatively low points and trade jams that way, or you can bring 1 and just have it with these long-range jams be very far off, and you don't need to hit every single jam. It doesn't have a jam strength bonus, right? It has a jam range bonus. So the idea isn't necessarily that you're hitting every jam, but you're hitting enough jams to run disruption in a fight and force the enemy tackle to go after you and not go after another target. And for as few points as a Blackbird is, that's just a lot of utility that you have in your arsenal for one ship.
One key thing about the Blackbird as well is that it's having a ECM range bonus, which both the Falcon and the Rook lacks. So while it's like a softer target, it doesn't have that strong jammers, but it does have the range advantage. So teams that can make use of that range, like put the Blackbird very far away and then screen whatever that can threaten it, it can give so much power to the Rook, since even though they can target the Rook while getting jammed, they can't shoot it because it's too far away. So it can be like this, just forcing them to deal with the Rook, but being hard to deal with because of the screening.
Yeah, one of the little niche things that I've noticed about the Blackbirds that are being brought in this tournament is that one of the least used modules in the game is actually being used in these fits, with the lock range rigs actually being put on the Blackbirds to enable them to win the jamming duel by sitting just outside of the lock range of an opposing Blackbird or Rook and jamming it from that far away. Fear, are there any other sort of niche uses of modules that tend to come out in the tournament that people watching might not be used to?
I think one of the bigger ones, although we haven't seen a whole lot of it this particular tournament, is tracking disruptors. It's something that, if you're aware of what the other team's bringing, can be extremely effective. Obviously, in the feeders, it's something that Rokapel were able to use to shut down a comp that we had kind of thrown together to try to counter this kind of kite comp that we knew that they were going to bring. So it's modules like these smaller ECM modules, or not ECM, these smaller EWAR modules that you don't necessarily see a whole lot on TQ because they don't scale very well in fleet fights, but in these smaller setups where you think you know what the other guy's going to bring, it becomes a lot easier for these modules to kind of shine in the right scenarios.
Yeah, anyway, for those of you who are wondering why this is taking so long in chat, the teams have to prepare their ships, they have to get everything organized. There is a lot that goes into getting a match like this prepared. The teams are nearly ready here, and we should be good to go in just another couple of minutes, so don't worry. That said, chat also has an opinion on who they think is going to win this match, with only Need 2 comps taking a clear lead, being the 65-35 favorites over Paper Numbers. Do you agree with that, Mizir, or are you expecting to see Paper Numbers pull this one back to a 1-all draw?
I mean, Paper Numbers might still have a chance if they are good at utilizing those conquest bans, but if Paper Number loses this match, I don't really see they have any chance for this best of 5, because at that point, like, they can't lose any more matches, and as this drags more and more out, it's going to benefit the only 2 comps, just because they have like this bigger pool of tournament veterans that can fairy craft. Because that's like one key thing about these best of 5s, especially with the conquest bans, is that you need to be able to adjust on the fly. You need to be able to quick come out with some sort of solution to circumvent a ban or the conquest bans themselves. So they need to have like this backbone of experience they can draw on. And even though Paper Numbers are amazing pilots and have a good understanding of theory crafting, they're going to have to be going on an uphill battle against the experience from Only Need 2 comps.
And what about yourself, Fear? Who do you think's going to take this match away? Sorry, this game away, not this match.
I think, all things considered, I think Paper Numbers actually has a pretty good chance for it, so I'm putting my channel points on them. I do think it's a lot closer than necessarily one team's going to be able to do the other. I think Only Need Two Comps has been showing very strong. They've still been undefeated thus far, and Paper Numbers, they got 100-0 when they've been doing this 100-0. So coming back mentally from that loss, resetting, coming into this next match is going to be difficult, but I do think the bands advantage Paper Numbers, and that they should have an easier time this match than they did last match.
Yeah, I've got to say, my belief is on Paper Numbers here. I'm overheating it practically. These guys have been amazing scrim partners with myself, and I've got to say, I didn't expect them to go this far. I don't think anyone did, but there's no way they're going to let their team down, let themselves down now. And I look forward to seeing them draw this one up, hopefully. Anyway, we have the teams in local now. We're just giving them a chance to check over their modules, make sure that the teleportation worked out well. The referee is doing a fantastic job as always. I'd like to spend just a moment, though, thanking the people who are working hard behind the scenes, even that aren't referees, to bring this stream to you. Sothrasil and Dirk Statiel, who have been working hard for not just the past 3 weekends, but for months to get all of the teams organized, get all of the administration sorted, and liaising with CCP to make this thing happen. If you want to see more tournaments like this occur, make sure to give your thanks to the people like that who are often less than thanked for their hard work. Anyway, is there anything else you guys want to cover really quickly before we get into this match, Mizera or Fear?
I'm good. The teams are in system. They're warping now. So I don't have anything more to say. What about you, Mizir?
I mean, I think like this could be a potential really exciting match. Like they have the Paper Numbers have the back against the wall, and it's two good teams, and they are like teams we haven't seen in finals before. So they have like a new way of thinking than what we're used to seeing. So looking forward to see what they're bringing. I really want to have a look at those setups, and I can all tap and just look at my EVE client. But I'm not going to say anything yet. I'm going to wait for the camera to go to the arena, and I hope Paper Numbers are going to win so we can have some more matches.
Yeah, it looks like all of the teams have landed. So let's hand it over to Chair and Radikos in the commentator's booth to take us through game number 2.
How's it going, everyone? We got the second match of the grand finals right now between Only Bring Two Comps, who has brought more than 2 comps, and also Paper Numbers. Radikos, can you tell me what's going on field right now?
Yeah, so right now we have Only Need Two Comps in a Astarte, Brutix Navy issue, Demos, Vigilant, Magus, Thalia, and Deacon to round out their comp. Then on the Paper Numbers team, we have 4 ships here sitting at 0. That was the Astarte and the Vigilant. Those guys are all at 0. The other comp has a Balgona Neros, Oracle, Augur Navy issue, Draugr, Blackbird, and a Sentinel. And we have the Brutix Navy, the Demos, the Astarte, and the Vigilant at 0, ready to rush the Paper Numbers team. And we have started the match. Chair.
I think this Balgorn's going to try and beeline it for those Logifrigs and get them separated a little bit from everything else. Now, there is not a lot of damage coming out of Paper Numbers side, but there's a lot of tracking, it looks like tracking disruptors coming out onto the Only Bring Two Comp side.
Oh, they just NJD'd right across the back line of Paper Numbers, and they're rushing in with those 4 ships, the Vigilant, the Demos, Brutix Navy issue, and the Astarte. It looks like Stryker is taking the most damage in the Vigilant here.
Yep, and they're right on top of that Blackbird. They want to get out off the field as fast as possible. Stryker is taking a ton of damage, though, and those Deacons and the Deacon and Thalia are not anywhere really close to put in sufficient reps.
Yeah, definitely right away they weren't, but I think they're pulling in here while this Blackbird is getting into low armor, which will take a lot of the control out of the field from these guys. And he is down. Oh, wow. Let's see where they take their next DPS here, what Only Two Comps goes. the Vigilant is catching armor right now. He is repping, but Tin Baron is also taking a little bit of DPS. Little split DPS going on right here.
Yep, and I think they're seeing that they can't really break this Vigilant with the amount of DPS they're bringing. This Balgorn is not doing a ton right now because large newts do not affect Deacons and Thalias as much as they do anything bigger than a Frigg because of just how fast they cycle through their cap.
Yeah, and they're primarying that Balgorn right now. The Magus might go down, and Destinoa only needs 2 comps. But if this Balgorn does go down, it will be over for Paper Numbers. They need to take out some ships right now to keep in this match.
Yep. And Parkbank did a wonderful job of not getting caught into the MJD play. The Blackbird was probably just a 10 in, so it really couldn't maneuver around when they probably saw that the MJD was going off. And the Balgorn is just taking tons and tons of damage. But the main issue here, though, is eventually that Balgorn probably has a reactive that's spooling up now all into the hybrid damage type of thermal and kinetic. So it might be able to start tanking. And they're chewing through this Magus as well. And that will make it so they're able to break through this armor because
there we
they don't
go.
have
Magus goes. And now they're doing a really smart thing is that they're still splitting between different ships, so making those Logifrigs have to do a lot of work right now. But on the other side, Rathisian is in Hull just barely tanking here. Parkbank is giving him everything he can, but that DPS is a lot. They have a lot of damage drones to tip that reactive on the field right now. I see some Imperial Navy, Republic Valkyries, Imperial Navy infiltrators. If they can take this Astarte down and keep this, if Parkbank can keep his man in Balgorn live, he is good. Oh, he's so close. He's down, folks. Oh, man, that's a huge loss for Paper Numbers. If they can get this Astarte and possibly this Deacon down at the same time, that would be pretty good for them. What they really want to have is this Oracle who has been on his own, not having any issues. It is good that it is keeping him up because he's going to be able to apply to whatever they need to shoot. But this Draugr, oh man, this Draugr is in half armor right now.
Well, they have Vigilwebs on field and just everything's going to be able to apply pretty well. And you're just going to see Paper Numbers slowly falling apart here.
Draugr goes down, yeah.
This is you can really tell that only bring 2 comps is really focusing on high DPS and not really trying to play a control game into Paper Numbers. I think they've cracked this nut where they've seen that people are just giving Paper Numbers too much time and too much respect, and they're just getting in their face and really just punching them.
Yeah, just shutting them down. I mean, that MJD play was absolutely brilliant. Very good play on only need 2 comps part.
And they're going on to the Oracle now, kind of just chasing it around, as well as chasing the Oneros, kind of splitting up damage. There's nothing really on field that really is going to mess with them or worry about them anymore. And the Sentinel hasn't really done much work because there's just too many turreted ships on the field. And it can nuke out one of the Deacons, but there's not any DPS really left on the field.
Yeah, I mean, with that Oracle just running for his life, he is not matching Transversal, getting optimum hits on anything on this other side. On only need 2 comps, and again, this ANI is very close to going down to Paper Numbers as well. Pressure upon Parkbank as well. Just a very good all-around effort right now. And only need 2 comps, separating the team up and dissecting them and knocking them out one by one.
Yep. And this Oracle has also just not really done anything remarkable. I think he should have been, if he was in on conflag range, they might have had a better chance. I totally understand not wanting to bring it because it's not very tanky at all. But at a certain point, you just have to cut your losses and hope that you can trade.
Right. I mean, that's why you bring in Oracles for that conflag DPS, so not just to sit at range. The ANAG does go down. We're just good fights going in local here. They kind of understand what's going on. That MJD play, man, just amazing. Parkbank's down.
It's very
the CEO is a CEO and an Oracle.
Yep. And it's very risky going in at 0, but they knew what they were doing. They didn't think they're going to get punished for it coming in at 0. Come into a Vindicator or 2 double Hyperions, it's a whole different match. So.
Oh yeah.
And now some interesting that we're seeing from Only Brings Two Comps is they're really focusing on more damage drones than everyone else has. Everyone else is usually using Repop swarms. They've only been bringing damage drones.
Yeah, I mean it's it's not a secret tech either. Like it's either you can pick one or the other, and these comps, like you said, when they're bringing more damage, it's why not bring the especially with the same resist profile. They're gonna want to bring damage DPS to when they go against armor and a reactive, they want that spool together and not just go one way. So. Yeah. And that is the match, folks. Only 2 comps have taken it. What do you think, Chair?
I'm excited for the third match. I hope Paper Numbers pull something out of their hat. We'll throw it back to the desk.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the desk. I'm joined by Charlie the Chair and Virian Stoneshard to help us break down that match. Chair, you were there right in the middle of that, getting to watch the supposed kings of the MJD play Paper Numbers have the exact same tactic brought up against them, using the central MJD beacon no less, which is something that we don't see brought too often. Can you just break down that play a little bit and why it was so impressive?
So, like I was saying during the match, it's a very risky play because if they bring any kind of rush comp or any double BS comp, there's you're just going to get slapped in the face because those Stardays, the Brutix Navy, just are going to take all the DPS they can very fast. As well as if you bump into each other during MJD, it changes your trajectory. So if you're not careful enough, you can end up going in various different directions.
Yeah, one of the interesting parts about that comp as well is that it seems as if Only Need Two comps sort of predicted that their opponents would be bringing ECM by leaving that Blackbird open, potentially even baiting them into it, as they brought a comp that was almost entirely one race, Galante. Can you go into just a little bit about how that affects the ECM mechanics, Virian?
Well, the thing is, when you manage to pull an MGD like that, the Blackbird essentially becomes useless because what is it going to do? Jam the DPS? The DPS is right on top of it, so it doesn't do anything anymore. And at that point, yeah, if you can kill the Blackbird with a bunch of blaster ships, the game is pretty much open for you to pick whatever target you want after that.
Yeah, and we also saw damage drones kind of taking over the reactive armor hardener, just stopping it from focusing entirely on kinetic and thermal, because all of those ships were damage locked as well into those things. Just really impressive thinking from Only Needs Two comps, and surely something they've been practicing for weeks to try and get right. And not showing it in anything. I don't think we saw them bring anything close to that in any previous games.
Yeah, I think one of the things we were talking about behind the scenes as well is the choice to ban the Armageddon and leave the rest of the bans fairly similar. We're wondering, if you're comfortable beating the Armageddon like they did in a previous match, are they going to bring something completely different now because they chose to go with different bans? And they pulled something we haven't seen before out of nowhere. And I think that went a really long way to just catch Paper Numbers off guard.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many interesting choices there as well, especially the MWD logistics frigates. We don't see that brought very often at all. Normally, we see them use either 1 MNABs or even more commonly 10 MNABs. Can you go into the differences between the 3 different prop types that get used in the tournament, Charlie, and perhaps why we don't see MWDs get brought quite as often with these small ships?
So the main 2 you're really going to see is 10MN and 5MN. 5MN really lets you reposition really fast and not get caught out as much. Or if you're getting neuted or spooled on by a triangulating ship, you can readjust, go out of its range, and then come back in really fast. 10MN is just a lot of damage mitigation. So you can be close in on your battleship, being webbed and everything, but you're still just mitigating a ton of damage because your traversal is so high, and you're also keeping good speed. And then there's 1MN, which isn't used a ton because it's just really slow and is not as effective as Tinderman.
What about some of the other ships that were brought to field? Were there anything else in that comp that you thought were particularly interesting, Virion?
Well, a lot of the times when you see these kind of DPS blaster rushes, you see battle cruisers, for example, like the Brudix and Navy Brudix, Navy Harbinger. But suddenly we see an Astarte, a Deimos. Those are really quite unusual picks. But they do bring a lot more tank. They have the local active tank bonus, both the Astarte and the Deimos, which might actually be quite critical here, just to buy enough time for this MGD play. If they have their own local tank to help them survive just a little bit longer, that gives those Deacon and Thalia just a bit of extra time to catch up to the MGDs and maybe save them.
Yeah, and using some of those unusual ships has left Only Need Two comps with a major advantage here going into game point, as the ships that are taken out of play with the Conquest bands are Astarte, Brutex Navy Issue, Deimos, Vigilant, Magus, Thalia, and Deacon, which I don't think we've even seen them bring any of those previously in their games. And the Hyperion, Drekvac, Rediva, Vedmak, Orc Navy, Draugr comp that we saw them bring before is now back up for picking. Do you expect us to see them try and run that back and take this in a 3-0 sweep showing only 2 comps, Chair, or do you think they'll go for something a bit more spicy here?
So it really depends on what Paper Numbers decides to ban out. I think that their theory crafting pool and just comp pool is going to be huge, and they can really bring anything they want at this point. But they haven't strayed that far from their original comp. It was just different ships, and they're expecting more of an ECM ship to be on field. That's why they were all Gallente. So I think we're going to see much of the same thing. And like I said before, only bring 2 comps is really just getting in Paper Numbers' face, not giving them time to kind of feel things out or really do any control. They're just DPSing them down as fast as possible and punch them in the face. And everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Yeah, it really does feel like Paper Numbers are on the back foot here. You know, they seem to be able to impose their will on so many of the other teams they faced, but Only Need Two comps is just throwing that right back at them tenfold here. I've got to hope that they can bring things back, though, because I want to see more games, and I'm sure everyone in the chat wants to see more games as well. Anyways, worth noting that Demesius Kadesh, the captain of Only Need Two comps, this wouldn't actually be his first tournament victory, as he actually won an in-person tournament, one of the FanFests, I believe it was 2018, where he won the Caldari Navy Corporation Cup. Still, this is his first large-scale online tournament that he is in the finals for, and potentially going to take this one home with him. What would that mean to you as a captain, Charlie, if you were able to bring a tournament home? You know, how much are the nerves starting to play into things now as you're sitting on game point?
He's very, very experienced, and I don't think the nerves will get to him at all. I think it's more of just excitement, but you get into the zone where you know what you need to do, and your team knows what you need to do, so they're just going to be very calm, very collected, and they're not going to let out that adrenaline until after the fact, because you have to win it first.
I think one of the very important things to mention here is, well, they have all the breathing room right now. They can lose 2 matches and still, pull something in the last match. They don't need to stress right now. It's very easy for them, especially now with the current Rolling Conquest bans. They kind of have every option on the table to do what they want. They can bring whatever the comp they pretty much want, and if it doesn't go their way, they have all the time in the world to try again 2 more times.
Yeah, so how do you think Paper Numbers must be feeling right now, Virion? Do you think they're going to get desperate and kind of stray away from this big double battleship-focused meta that they've been playing all the way throughout this tournament?
Well, if I was in their shoes, getting caught off guard by a big MGD play like that and suddenly being completely in the backseat, do or die, the pressure is definitely on. At that point, you start making little mistakes, you start maybe forgetting tiny changes that you could do. And at this point, that's critical. You have no room for error anymore.
And it looks like neither team is adjusting. Once again, we have almost the exact same bans brought to the field, a mirror of Game 1, with Leshak, Rook Blackbird banned by Only Need Two Comps, and Curse Scorpion Zarmazd banned by Paper Numbers. This leaves the Armageddon open, but do you think Paper Numbers would be confident enough to bring it this time, seeing how it fared in their first matchup?
Well, there's a lot of ways that could play out. You could bring it again knowing what you did wrong in the first match and just try to play it better this time. Or you could say, hey, let's just do something completely different. So it does really leave a lot of options to them as well.
You talked a little bit about having a ton of different comps kind of prepared, Charlie. How much work goes into actually theory crafting these comps? Like how much testing do you have to do to feel confident to bring something in a finals like this? And how much work does it goes into actually just making them in the first place?
I mean, hours upon hours are made theory crafting. As for how much practice needs to go into one, like if they do the same core objective, the ships really don't matter. Like how only brings two comps. They brought a Drekavac and a whole bunch of other ships that use guns and do their damage from almost anywhere they want to and are highly maneuverable. They did the same thing the next comp, and you don't need to practice that with the different hull types because they all do the same thing. It's all just about executing the plan.
Yeah, and I see in chat some questions about if there's going to be any more tournaments going on before the Alliance tournament this year. And there is only one confirmed so far, which is the EVE Japan Tournament 2020 Summer, which will be taking place on July the 17th and July the 18th. It's a 2v2 tournament that's being run by Sioro Razgriz, who is also running our Japanese language stream for this. And I have to give a huge shout out to him for that, and as well as to Kai Hazard, who is running the Chinese restream. This is going all over the world to hundreds and hundreds of players and thousands even. And I'm so excited to see this amount of excitement being brought forward to tournament gameplay. Without those of you in the audience, this wouldn't be possible and this wouldn't happen. So thank you all for showing your support, and I hope to see even more of this in the future. Make sure to tell your friends to tune in, and make sure to even try and participate if you can. Anyway, we're still waiting for the teams to ready up and start getting teleported in. So, Virion, we haven't seen a lot of battle cruisers brought so far in this match. Only the Astarte and the Brutex in that last match. And we've not seen a lot of them over the past weekend. What are the kind of advantages of those battle cruisers?
Well, you get quite a lot out of them when you look really into the stats. They're not squishy like cruisers or faction cruisers. They really have quite a bit of buffer. They bring links to the table, which in these kind of formats is very, very important. Getting those extra resist, extra speed, lower signature, all that stuff can be incredibly critical to your team. And they generally provide a really good overall DPS as well. So it's kind of an all-in-one package. And depending on which ones you pick, something that's also quite worth mentioning, a lot of ships in the game don't have drone bonuses, but you don't need those to run a really effective set of rep bots or even ECM bots. So that's something most battlecruisers have about 50 bandwidth, and that can be quite useful overall.
Yeah, we saw that being used quite effectively by aggressively mid-tier, the Roke Capel team in this tournament, who pretty much ran triple daddy, so 3 battle cruisers, all the way through the tournament before getting knocked out by, I believe, Paper Numbers. Still, it doesn't look as though they have been able to adjust and bring a counter comp quite as well to what Only Need Two comps are bringing to the field here today. I just hope that they've got something left in the bag for us for this game 3.
I really do hope so. Getting another match out of this tournament would be quite fun, and especially the more matches that we get right now, the more the pressure is on. If it gets to a best out of 5, I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, one of the more interesting ships that we've also seen Paper Numbers bring to the field is using a Merlin in an armor composition. Chair, can you go over a little bit about why you would do that and why that's effective in a tournament setting?
I mean, they needed a tackle frigate, and they determined that the Merlin was the best choice for that. Purely probably because of how many mids it has, so they can fit a Scram Web MWD and maybe a cap injector or something else in the mids. I do not remember off the top of my head how many mids it does have, but shield ships generally have more mids than armor.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it looks like chat has gone even harder in the direction of only need 2 comps now, with 75% in favor of them, whilst only 25% remaining in paper numbers. It seems as though paper numbers' fans are slowly bleeding points to the other side of the equation. Chair, do you think paper numbers is going to be able to pull this one back, or are only need 2 comps going to seal it out in 3?
I think paper numbers is really going to have to bring something different that they haven't shown yet. To be able to really do anything to only needs 2 comps with just how solid they've been this tournament.
What about yourself, Virian? Who do you think is coming out here today?
Well, paper numbers so far have brought that heavy armor battleship control setup twice, and only need 2 comps have just shown that they can just dismantle that comp with completely different strategies. So unless they bring something very different that isn't that like traditional armor battleship core, I think what we're going to see is just only need 2 comps pulling the same thing and just dismantling them one by one and getting another win here. But I really do hope paper numbers pulls another win here, just to bring us those last few extra matches where the odds really start going up.
Oh, I really do as well. Thank you to all of the ISD Twitch mods as well, keeping chat nice and clear. But if you guys in chat do have any questions about the tournament, we are paying attention to it. And we're happy to field the questions that you have about the teams that are playing and the mechanics that are in play here. Also, we just want to spend a moment just thanking the other teams that have competed in this tournament. As I've said before, we had 48 teams sign up for this tournament, but only, whilst only 2 of them are remaining now, all of them were important to making this happen. Even if you got knocked out in the feeders, even if, like myself, you went 0-2 in the regular bracket, it's been great fun to watch all of these games and even get to compete in them. I hope to see this level of enthusiasm brought forwards to more player-run tournaments in the future, as this is going to help keep the tournament scene going in between the breaks between the yearly Alliance tournaments, which we have to look forwards to later on in the year.
Yeah, fun thing about tournaments like these is the different rule sets, the different player numbers, they really keep everything fresh and different and really make you adjust the way that you do it. It's not just the same thing every time. You really have to go with completely different strategies, completely different metas, and that's always fun to just kind of figure out how the tournament's going to play out.
Okay, well, like I said, we're still waiting for things to get set up here, so let's talk a little bit about the general mechanics of how this works, just one last time, just in case anyone's got any concerns. We've seen the MJDs get used really effectively in aggressive positioning, and even whilst it hasn't worked out for paper numbers, the main thing to worry about that is the arena boundary. Chair, can you just quickly go over the arena boundary, how all of that works, and the size of this arena, and why it makes kiting so much more difficult?
So when you enter the arena, you're basically stuck in a sphere with your enemy team, and it is 125 km diameter. So anytime you cross that, there is a tool that will immediately explode your ship, and you do not get a second chance. And it makes kiting a lot harder because you can be, if the other team is pretty well versed at dealing with kiting comps, you can kind of be boxed into one little area and make it hard to be able to go around them.
Yeah, small correction there. It's a 125 kilometer radius, so that does give you a little bit of room to play with MGDs, but if you're not careful, you point your ship the wrong direction, you get bumped. 100 kilometers is quite an easy way to send yourself over that boundary and get exploded.
Yeah, and obviously after you've activated an MJD, you lose almost all of your agility, so you can't readjust. If you click that button at just the wrong time, it can send you careening into the abyss, even without anyone else's impact. Or, as I discovered in a few of my tests, if you just run into the MJD beacon itself, it's a collidable model, and it will bump you too.
Yeah, one thing to note as well, if you're running a prop mod or anything, it will start accelerating your ship to full speed when you activate one as well. So one of the things that you might notice is that if you get just, near the boundary, but you have your micro warp drive running at the same time, for example, you're going to pick up a lot of speed, and you're not really going to be able to change your direction until the MGD is over. So that might be enough to, finish sending you over the boundary, or put your ship in an awkward position.
Yeah, the boundary itself also kind of reduces the impact of speed advantage versus the advantage of projection, as when you end up turning to try and avoid hitting that boundary, that gives a perfect opportunity for people to burn in on an intercept course and catch you if they can predict whether you're going to go left, right, up, or down.
Yeah,
Anyway,
oops, go ahead.
No, we have the teams in the arena system now. We're just waiting for them to start warping over, checking their modules, making sure everything's ready. I cannot wait to see this match. Do you guys think this is going to be a good game?
Going off the last two matches, definitely. It's going to be exciting one way or another.
Yeah, I hope we see something new from Paper Numbers. Really excited to see what they bring.
Yeah, and this is for a lot of money. As I've said a few times, this is 130 billion ISK on the line for the winning team, but the losing team will go home with 20,900 plex as well, so they're not exactly going to be strapped for cash. The perfect sort of fund to help with their AT run in the future, be that a bid or buying a very, very pimped out flagship. Of course, the Alliance tournament does take place on Tranquility. This just takes place on Thunderdome, where all of the modules and all of the ships are spawned by commands, effectively.
Yeah, and I mean, one way or another, the most important thing to remember is the glory is on the line here now. If they win this tournament, that's bragging rights.
Oh yeah, those are crucial. Not only that, it just allows for a lot of intimidation as well.
There is a little bit of added pressure when you're coming up against somebody that you know has won previous tournaments. And we are just now seeing ships warping in. Oh, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see this match go on. Like I said, any thoughts as we see the teams start to arrive here?
This is going to be a long, drawn out grind, I think, for either side. This is certainly going to be interesting.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens. One final question, I suppose, is do you think we're going to see any more MJD plays in this game, Chair?
I certainly hope so. It's one of my favorite parts of this.
I can only hope.
Well, it looks like all of the teams have landed. They're just getting out of their warp state now. So let's hand this over to Fear and Moderator in the commentators booth for this game. Take it away, boys.
Welcome to the third match of the Grand Finals between Only Need 2 Comps and Paper Numbers. We see that Only Need 2 Comps has decided to bring a Balgorn Drekvac Rediva, double Aug Navy issue Draugr, and a Tyrannus.
And on the blue side, it's Paper Numbers bringing double Geddon, Oneros, Augur Navy issue, Draugr, Muller, and Malediction. Bring the same comp they had game number one. This time up against another armor control. This time with a little bit more DPS. I've got a Drekvac and dual ANI. We'll see if they're going to be able to make this happen with the 3-0 sweep for Only Need 2 Comps, or if Paper Numbers are able to keep the Cinderella story alive. We have 30 seconds until match start. I'm excited. How about you, moderator?
I am thrilled to see what we're going to, get out of these teams. We see that there are rapid heavy missiles fit to both of the Armageddons, 4 launchers on each, so that'll be 4 launchers and probably 3 newts. We see, what's going to be a duel of these Augur Navy issues trying to position and get on top of the hostile logistics. Tin Baron choosing to go once again with that Tech 1 Rediva, whereas Parkbank, his counterpart on the other side, going with the Oneros. And already off the bat, we see the Malediction of Piashti trying to position, maybe go for a bit of hostile screen, the Mauler of CEO streaming across the field and Piashi taking damage as the Augur Navy issues and Balgorn choosing to withdraw.
MJD play onto the backside, though. Ryfuson finally gets one off this side of the tournament. He's going to try to make his way onto the Swordiva, but he's a little bit too far out in this getting, launching drones at the moment. They are split up as this Malediction's got some light drones on top of him as well.
Yeah, we see that the Imperial Navy Praetors are coming out from the Armageddon onto the Rediva, but I can't help but feel they're a little bit wasted. The Rediva having no trouble outspeeding these hostile heavy drones, and we'll see if Ryfuson's MJD will play off, or if he's just going to end up being kind of a bit of an MJD one trick in this event.
Mauler diving in on this Balgorn, but he is being muted out as the Tyrannus moves in towards Strain onto the CEO. He has been able to survive a lot longer in these matches than a lot of other people, but meanwhile, on the backside for his team, this Oneros of Parkbank taking a little bit of damage. I believe just drones at the moment. No one hasn't tackled quite yet.
Okay, so we have the Tyrannus of Gorski Kar, who we haven't really seen playing a lot too much in this match. He's going to get on top of the Oneros in just a second and get tackle on top of him. The Malediction of Piaki trying to counter, but that's Gorski Kar getting Scramweb on top of the Oneros. Really good tackle, and now the Augur Navy issues of Nalek and Pierre choosing to close on top of him. A cloud of drones, Gorski down into Hull, but if they trade out Parkbank, it's more than worth it. Meanwhile, Tim Barron taking armor damage. Man, it's a bit of a flex placing Gorski Kar in the match, saying, we can take a player that hasn't been in any matches so far, we're going to 3-0 you, we're going to kill Parkbank, we're going to kill this Oneros, and we're going to send you out of the tournament.
Yeah, the Oneros for the Tyrannus, not necessarily a worthwhile trade for paper numbers. This Geddon not able to do enough towards this Rediva at the start of the play. He's been so good on these MGDs all tournament long, but this time around didn't really work out in his favor. And now it's an all-out brawl in the arena. Damage going every which way. Still some damage on the arena, or onto the Rediva from the drones. But meanwhile, Jalthi seems to be the primary target for Only Need 2 comps.
Yeah, no, Jalthi was trying to get into the back line, get on top of Taryn Baron, but we can see that he's taking a good amount of pressure from Damasus Kadesh and now Kit Kat. Jalthi is down into low armor, and he's going to drop. Piashki in the Malediction trying to, live to win, but doesn't live. Both the Draugr and the Malediction dropping. Tim Baron living to win. Only needing 2 comps, showing just an absolute domination so far in this match, only having lost the Tyrannus, the hero tackle getting on top of the Oneros of Parkbank, and I think we're going to see a clean sweep from here on out here.
Yeah, Only Need 2 comps, absolutely beautiful, undefeated throughout the entire tournament, and this time around trading Gorski Kar for an Oneros off the start of the match, and they bring the extra DPS that they need to in this Drekavac, in these dual ANIs, and they continue to steamroll over paper numbers. The Cinderella story over for this team. The clock has struck midnight, and unfortunately for them, they're going to be sent home. Second place ain't so bad, but still not quite the victory they were hoping for.
Yeah, no, definitely not getting that kiss to wake up, getting knocked out pretty hard. Ryfuson, the primer, we see a cloud of hostile drones on top of him. The Drekvek and the Draugr just continuing to play at range as the Balgorn of Arya Yotilla is being held down by Maddox right now in that Armageddon, and the Mauler on top of him at 0, but just not able to apply damage. These Geddon drones were the main damage for this paper numbers team, and I mean, unfortunately, Armageddon drones are just very, very slow. They spent so much time trying to chase after Tin, and in the meantime, Only Need 2 comps was spending plenty of time just moving themselves, getting tackle on top of the Oneros, and then killing it. We see Ryfuson with another MJD play getting far away from anything, but I mean, he's down into low hull. Another little bit of damage will break him. The CEO now not really doing a whole lot of anything, actually, just trying to nude out the Balgorn of all things, actually. Meanwhile, we see Nalek continuing to apply damage to his Augur Navy issue counterpart and to Maddox as well.
Yeah, Maddox going down pretty low. And I want to point out this, I think, comes down to Tin Baron being perfectly positioned in that Rodiva to avoid Ryfuson's MJD off the start. I think if the Logi got traded earlier on, it might have been a different story. But now only need 2 comps, running away with this. Once again, only losing Gorski Kar in that Tyrannus off the start of the fight. Ryfuson going to regen some shields up at the moment as Tin Baron is diving into low armor. He's got some drones on him, but not a whole lot else. Might actually go into structure here. And yeah, it looks like the Rodiva just ran out of cap or something of that nature. He's not able to rep himself up nearly enough, but he will be traded for Maddox. And that's all she wrote for this match.
Yeah, the Republic Fleet Berserkers now finally catching up with him and will get the kill onto Tin Baron, the hero logistics of this match. And I can't help but feeling like the second round picks that we saw, choosing to go all in Blaster Rush, diving onto the back line, now opened up a composition that only need 2 comps actually wanted to bring in this match. It felt like round 2 was kind of a throwaway that they were able to all in and get success with once they killed the Blackbird and then the Logi. I mean, I can't help but feel like only need 2 comps in this event has just been head and shoulders above their competition throughout, just steaming through the winner's bracket and then getting a 3-0 sweep.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful from Only Need 2 comps. Can't wait for the AAR to be posted on Reddit at some point. Hopefully we get something of that so we know just how much work went in for this squad to win the tournament. Absolutely beautiful from them. And once again, congratulations, Paper Numbers, for making it this far after being knocked down by Volt B in the first round. Obviously getting 3-0 swept, not the ending that you necessarily want, but still second place in the tournament where you weren't expected to get nearly this far is really, really strong. So congrats to Paper Numbers. But once again, our champions for the Anger Games 5 are Only Need 2 comps. The ANI last member alive. He will fall, and ONTC will take the queen sleep of the tournament.
Yeah, we see some good fights in local, a lot of sportsmanship. Now we see that Only Need 2 comps is saying, hey, you had an insane tournament run, and we're counting on you to be top 4 in the Alliance tournament. We saw that Only Need 2 comps, they got top 4 in the previous Alliance tournament, now winning 3-0 cleanly, getting first place in the Anger Games for the very first time. So we have a new champion here in Localist Primary, cleanly winning 100-17, only losing Tin and the Tyrannus. Well played by both teams, and more on that. We'll send it back to the desk.
Hello everyone and welcome back. As we just heard there from the commentators, that crowns Only Need 2 comps as your victors in the Anger Games 5, taking home a prize of 130 billion ISK, and of course all of the swagger that they deserve for not losing a single match throughout this tournament. A completely dominant run for them, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they bring to future tournaments this year. Anyway, we are going to start to wrap things up, but I just want to spend a couple of minutes thanking the entire commentary team who have helped make this thing so special, including all of the people who are here today and all of those who aren't, especially Zuark and his cat, who were together the greatest host pairing I think we've ever seen in tournament play. And also, of course, to the CCP crew who made all the tech happen behind the scenes, especially CCP Zealous, CCP Aurora, and CCP Convict, who brought things over the line and were able to get this tournament the support it needed to come into existence. Finally, I just want to ask, I think the answer is a little obvious, but who do you think is the MVP of this finals match?
Good morning, everyone.
Well, despite the fact that they may have lost, I just want to give Ryfusson a shout out for pulling off some of the most amazing MGD plays that we've seen this tournament. It didn't quite work out in this last match. It was a quite close call. If they'd gotten a little bit closer, getting those newts on the enemy logistic, it might have worked out, but he's still done an amazing job.
All right, hang on here a second, guys, because we actually have an amazing, something we've never seen before, which is the captains are going to be coming on to talk about their tournament run with you guys and share a little bit of insight about how things went. So, Ryfusson, welcome. How did you find everything? Are your hands still shaking?
Welcome, Junta. Oh, no, I think no, it's fine. Like before the first two matches, it was pretty horrible at the finals, and I think against Volt B because they kicked us down, and second one was Templis because they're just fucking strong. Like we got their Logi for free, and it was still so close, so it was pretty handshaking. But no, it's fine. Yep.
Yeah, congratulations on your run. You did amazing work to get this far, and we're looking forward to seeing what you do. Are you planning to participate in the Alliance tournament this year?
I really hope that we get like a direct slot, like the last year got. It was our goal when we realized we can get top 4, that we probably get in the top 4 ranks, so we get a direct ticket into the Alliance tournament. And I really hope CCP is doing this thing this year again, so we get a good spot, and then we will start preparing for the 80, obviously, because we want those. We really want those. I think it's the Chameleon and the Whiptail, and we love gems, so the
Isn't it the
Chameleon
Mirror
is
and
something we're
Trekkie?
looking for.
Greetings.
And here we have our champion of Anger Games 5, Damasius Kadesh. Damasius, how does it feel to be the victor?
A little bit surreal, but pretty good.
What do you think really brought you guys over the line here today? Do you think that there's anything in particular that led you to your victory?
I mean, definitely several years of tournament experience building on that, and then just a lot of practicing, getting really familiar with the strategies and comps we had, and sort of developing like a horizontal style of teamwork where everyone is contributing information and working together instead of it being like a top-down only approach. So big team effort, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify that there have been no discussions with CCB as of yet about having the top 4 be invited to the Alliance tournament directly. But we can only hope. Given the performance of all these teams here today, I think it would be hard to say that they don't deserve it.
Yeah, we'll take it one step at a time. Just tried to stay focused on this one and put everything we had into it. And it was really satisfying to have it pay off like that.
Well, judging by your performance today, I don't think getting into the Alliance tournament through the feeders, if necessary, would be any problem.
Yeah, Riferson, something that we talked about in the interview that we did together that didn't quite make the final cut was that you guys are actually looking for a few more pilots to join your team. I'm sure after today, you'll have recruits lining up out the door. But would you like to confirm that and tell people what you're looking for?
Yeah, we're currently looking for more members for our team. I think the AG was a great show that we can go far. And we're currently looking mainly for German people, since currently we're kind of staying really German focused. And if there are any German players out there that want to go for a tournament team, we give everyone a chance, no matter how low your experience is. We have 2 new bros that were flying with us in the trainings. They didn't make it for the final team, sadly, like in most of the matches, because we tried to run the best lineup all the time. But for example, one of our replacement players, I think Yalti, had connection problems in one game and he got in. So yeah, if you want to go into the tournament, even if you have no experience, you will get a shot in our team. But you really need to be able to go around with criticism and stuff like this, because we analyze a lot of games and talk to people what to improve, what could go better next time, what mistakes did we make. And it's very important that you're willing to learn and to improve and join a lot of trainings. Like, it's pretty time consuming to prepare for those tournaments.
Yeah,
and confirm.
So, Damasius, do you have anything you want to talk about here? Anyone you want to shout out that you think's helped you to get this far and to achieve the top of the summit at this Anger Games?
I mean, yeah, everyone on the team, obviously. I mean, KitKat was making all these crazy graphs of our practices. Tin is like an absolute spreadsheet legend. Made tools that made it easier for us to handle the best of 5. And I mean, I could literally list everyone. So shout out to the whole team. Super happy with everyone's commitment, all the time people spent in practices. We had like such an excellent turnout the whole time. Good vibes and good fun.
All right. Well, with all that said, let's hand it over to Sothrasil to show us out for this event.
Jin already thanked a lot of people here, but I think it's really important to thank the people who put the most work into this. I want to especially thank Dirk Statil for handling the stream. He put a lot of work into this. I want to thank Zurau for being our host on most of the days. Sadly, he couldn't be here for the last weekend. And of course, Jintan for jumping in for Zurau and doing the hosting with little to no time to prepare for it. And I also want to thank all of the people who helped shape the rule sets for this tournament, because I think a lot of people don't know how much work goes into tournaments before the first ship lands on grid. Right. So thank you to all of those people who looked at the madness we came up with and raked us in and told us, hey, maybe these rules you should cut out. Yeah, and I hope you are looking forward to more tournaments. The AT is coming up this year again, late this year. We also have a 2v2 tournament coming up from the Japanese. Zeo, I think his name is organizing that. And if you're looking for announcements for the next Anger Games, just look at sneaky trailers that will be played during the AT like last time, because I'm not going to announce that right now or Dirk will murder me. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope we see you again. I hope you see us again. And that's it from me.
All right. Well, with all that said, let's hand it over to the Void once again until we get another tournament. It might be a couple of months, but I look forward to seeing you all there. Until next time, fly smart.